What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, and today we are making a video for the locals. And the reason we're doing this is because people who watch this channel have asked me to speak up for the locals, not in a negative way. It's not really negative. It's just kind of give the locals an opportunity to share what they like, right? And so this button doesn't want a button for some reason. But anyway, there we go. So yes, people in the comments have asked me, they say, hey, you really cater to people from out of state, but what about us locals? And they said they want to have a voice. And one of the other reasons why I came up with this video is because when I went to places like Japan, there's like a video, what Japanese people want foreigners to know, or something like this. Like whenever I went to Europe, what do Europeans want Americans to know? Or these kind of videos are very common. So I figured, hey, let's make a video here in 2024 speaking for the locals to the people who are new to the state. So it's a great idea, right? Some people actually took it the wrong way. I posted on the community tab and they thought that we were trying to pick on newbies. No, obviously we're not. We're just actually giving the locals a voice, which is a great thing. I think everyone who's moving to a new place should always at least hear what the locals have to say. Some of it might be not so friendly, and a lot of it's going to be friendly. So when we posted the question on the community tab, a lot of you guys answered. 112 of you actually answered. So thank you to everyone who took the time to respond. I said, going to do a live stream as a message to newbies to Arizona from the locals. By the way, if you guys write in the comments some messages that you would like to have for the locals, I can read them during the live stream. And then also they'll be there after the live stream goes. So the first thing we said, what were some remarks that you guys would like to give to the locals? Some of the options were tips about driving. That's a big thing. Things to do, like what to do. The other one was stop trying to change the state. That one was actually the largest recommendation. At 63% of the people just simply asked that when you come here, go with the flow, become an Arizona resident. Don't come here and try and start changing things. I mean, I think that goes pretty much for every single place on planet Earth. Wherever you go, you probably, or if you're a guest, you probably shouldn't move in and start trying to change things, because if you do, it's going to come with some resistance. That's a big thing. And that was the biggest thing right here. This isn't necessarily my opinion. This is what the locals are really telling newbies. Like when you come here, you become an Arizona resident and learn the customs and the traditions and the ways of being a desert rat, as we like to call people from the desert. I mean, I don't know if you want to be called a rat, but desert rats is what they usually call them, people who live out here in the desert. And then the other thing was best foods. And then we had some other comments. So I'm going to be reading a bunch of these, and also from the comments right here. Yes, Hampson says, crush up the likes. Thank you so much for that. Deanne says, great ideas. Jeff N says, Yuma, rain all day. Actually, here in Phoenix, rain all day. It's totally wet. The desert is going to be loving it. The desert is needing this. I mean, it was literally raining all day as if it was like Switzerland or something. I mean, it was like the ground is soaking wet. There's puddles. There's no floods. It was like a consistent drizzle throughout the day. So if you're looking in from out of state, that's pretty cool. Yesterday was sunshine, not a cloud in the sky, blue skies, and today is just rain, nothing but rain. So let's go ahead and get into some of these right now. Thank you to everyone who's already smashed up the likes. We have 18 likes. Look at that. You guys, we're 3 minutes and 50 seconds in, and 18 of you guys have already smashed up the likes. I actually wear these glasses, although I don't like the glare. But the good thing about these glasses is they're blue light resistant. I got them on Amazon. These are called Horus. So if you guys are looking for something for eye strain, these are the amber ones. These are great. You can actually wear them like driving around as sunglasses, but when you're looking at screens, whether it's your phone or whatever, I'll try to put a link in the description. I didn't put one right now, but hey, I'll get an Amazon link, and if you guys buy it, I think it's an affiliate link that I'll put in there. So I actually bought 2 of these. The reason I bought 2 is because when I travel, I want to have a backup, because I had them before and I had tried to get other glasses, like $35, $40, not expensive. And they save your eyes from eye strain. But I'm trying to wear them on this live stream, but the glare is crazy. All right, let's get into this. 33 people smashed the likes. So here are some of the comments. You guys ready for these? Someone said, I moved from Arizona and became a zoner. I think she means a zony, but a zoner is okay. I wanted to learn about and respect the culture here and assimilate. No desire to change Arizona at all. I love the land of Barry Goldwater. For those of you who don't know who Barry Goldwater is, he was a politician in like the 1960s or 70s, and I think he ran for president at one point in time. 2005, CC says, I'm from the Midwest and I love Arizona. I wouldn't change the beauty of this state. I can now enjoy the great outdoors more. I've met great friends from all over. Just wish it wasn't so crowded, but transplants like myself are just wanting a better lifestyle. What really surprised me were the amount of accidents I see on the daily. People drive really fast. So they want you to know that out here, people drive fast and it's a bit dangerous on the roads. Now, someone's going to say, well, what makes someone a local? Well, you could make the argument, someone who was born here, like me, I was born in Phoenix. John C. Lincoln Hospital. I don't even think John C. Lincoln exists anymore, but that's a native. So we're not talking about natives or whatever, the endemic people, right? I'm talking about people who live here right now, at least 6 months, maybe a year longer. Some people would say, well, you should take advice or make someone a local who's been here at least 10 years. But because we're not really looking to categorize that, we're just saying people who are living here, they already have enough experience. They're going through the process of being here, living the life. So someone who's a transplant and living here, we're considering them a local for this. Someone says, heat stroke safety, especially if you come from colder places or never been exposed to high temps like Arizona. They're saying basically be careful because the heat will sneak up on you. So if you're going to go hiking in the summertime or from about May until October or from April until October, the heat can sneak up on you. And that's a message they want to give to you guys who are coming here. Be cautious of that. Bring some water, electrolytes, get electrolytes in you, whether that's through fruit or vegetables mixed with electrolyte powders, whatever you have to do. This person, Franz Julio, says, born and raised in Arizona. I lived in Tucson and Phoenix. My wife is from Yuma. I love the White Mountains, Mount Lemmon, Prescott, Flagstaff, Sedona, Bisbee, Sahuarita, and most other places. I wish it could stop growing, a statement which would be reasonable or unreasonable, but I do worry about too much growth. So they're worried about the natural environment getting paved, turning into a concrete jungle, replacing the native horticulture, the native environment, right? So they're a little bit concerned about that. So I think when you move here, we should all be kind of aware of like the Sonoran Desert is beautiful. We don't need to, just pave the whole desert. We want to take care of it and preserve it. A lot of people don't realize how beautiful the desert is. I always tell people, I come from the desert. They think like, oh, like Saudi Arabia or like the Sahara Desert. No, I'm from the Sonoran Desert. We're a lush desert. We got a lot of green trees and cactus, but it's really beautiful, especially if you actually get out there and hike. You'll love it. And the more that you live here, the more you'll love the desert. And they said, however, I understand why Arizona draws so many people. It's beautiful and offers something for everyone. See, a lot of these are positive comments coming from Arizona locals, natives in this case. So it's not all just like negative. Some people actually thought this was a negative direction to take, but they were jumping to conclusions. And we have to be careful with jumping to conclusions about things like that, getting instantly offended. And I think that's my big message. I guess if I was to have a voice, don't be so easily offended. Don't be the type of person who comes to Arizona and just is offended by everything. That's one thing that I would say doesn't add much value. I think it's like going to the Christmas party. No one wants to be around a negative Nancy or a negative Ned or a negative person, right? No one wants to be around that negativity. So if you have a grievance, say it, but try to make a silver lining or make it into a positive. Don't just drown it out, right? So always there's a silver lining to everything, right? Even when you have to pay, it's tax season. And, I tend to get negative during tax season because it's so stressful for me as a small business owner, but I have to look at the silver lining in it. And I have to keep telling myself that. So I think we all deal with it, even when I'm sitting here preaching about it, right? Someone says, loved Arizona, lived there for 7 years. It was red when okay, well, that was actually a political comment. So I'm going to try and avoid that because people kind of get, depending on what direction it is, I'm trying to remain agnostic on that one. So, okay, this one says stop selling to California. I gotta filter some of those. Don't complain about Phoenix not being diverse enough, but only hang out in Arcadia and Scottsdale. So what they're saying is some people, they move here and they don't think there's cultural diversity here, but there really is. In a lot of areas, there's cultural diversity. Maybe not so much in places like Arcadia and Scottsdale. So that's a good point. You got to find the area. If you want diversity, it exists here in Phoenix. It exists across the Phoenix metro area. It exists in Tucson and across Arizona. You just have to know where to find it. And I think that's a very fair statement. I like that comment, by the way. That one came from Aventera. Too many bad drivers lately. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of comments about the driving that kept coming up. Thank you to the 55 people who smashed the likes. We got 151 people watching. I see your comments. Let me read some from the live comment stream. Have to go for now. Hope you post this video as a video so I can watch later. Yes, I will, but thank you to everyone who's just still watching. Be Kind says the desert is gorgeous. Hello, Connecticut resident who was diagnosed with MS and have been planning to move down that way to climb it. And I was told it was affordable to live there if I moved to the right town. Is this true? Yeah, you can still find affordability. I mean, if you're trying to live in the Phoenix metro area, West Phoenix is going to be most affordable. But if you just need to be in a dry climate in the desert Southwest, maybe consider places like Kingman, Bullhead City. By the way, we've recently done several videos, travel guides for you guys that are brand new. We've got 3 that I recommend you guys watch. In particular, the Sedona Verde Valley one. We did that one yesterday. It was published. If you haven't seen the Sedona things to do, that one I highly recommend. We did Flagstaff things to do and Prescott things to do. Before those, we also did Yuma and Bullhead City and Kingman. So if you guys got some time during the holidays, go back and watch those videos because that's all relevant information around the state outside of Phoenix. Okay. The only one that could possibly be on there that's not on there would be Tucson, but we plan to go back down to Tucson anyway. So if you're new here, you can subscribe and pay attention to all that as it comes out. LAM says Mesa rained all day. Hampson said drivers way better here than anywhere else. Drivers. Yeah, I mean, the subject of drivers, if I could just summarize the comments that were really coming in, people say, slow down. Try to go at least like, if you got to go over the speed limit, try not to go like 20 to 30 miles over the speed limit. Not only is that illegal, obviously, but people do it anyway. I mean, there's sometimes I'm like, where's the enforcement of the traffic? Because, you know, I'll see people just hauling absolute, you know what, down surface streets going 70, 80 miles an hour in giant trucks. It's almost always dudes on a bicycle or in a big truck. And the dudes in the big truck, they always have the loudest truck, and there's no one there to stop these guys from just absolutely ripping. And they're not the types to just drive fast and bob in and out of traffic. They will come right up on your rear and basically force you out of their way. They're like, those are the people that are just, I don't know what they're on. I don't know what they're on. Maybe they're on life, too much life. I don't know. Richard says Bullhead City has a high crime rate. I mean, it does, but we did make a video about the most dangerous places in Arizona. If you haven't already seen that, you can go back to the channel and watch that. I guess you guys got a lot of homework if you're thinking about moving here, because we've made about 10 videos addressing most important things in Arizona. You guys can go back and watch those over the holidays, Christmas and stuff. So make that a note, save the channel to go back after this video. But you can watch those. And I got a lot of comments on there where people were saying, you know, in comparison to other places, Arizona really isn't that dangerous. They were like, you know, you're making it out to be like Arizona's this dangerous place. There's like maybe 2 or 3 places that are really dangerous. And I'll just tell you right now, it is the south central side of Phoenix, or just going southwest of Phoenix, or even around the airport. It's a bit dangerous. Okay, it is. And then like South Tucson and then Tolleson. Okay. Aside from those 3 places, most of Arizona is safe. And when I tell you it's dangerous in those areas, it's pretty sketchy. You probably wouldn't want to be walking around out there ever, any time of the day. It's not a good place to be walking around. I guess in the daytime, it's probably the safest, but at nighttime, I wouldn't recommend going down there. So Someone said Officer Slope is doing his part to catch speeders. Well, I remember growing up here, they used to pull me over. They used to pull me over. I don't see anyone pulling people over anymore. Maybe they've gone to photo radar. I'm not a big fan of like pulling people over or anything, but when I see someone who's driving so aggressively, so recklessly, and so dangerously, just basically abusing it, I can't help but say, hey, that person has got to get stopped. And I'm not big on like law enforcement, like over enforcement, but in those cases, I really do get annoyed with crazy drivers, like just abusive drivers, you know? Why not? Um, Robinson family says, that's how I feel about West Mesa. It's nothing compared to Southwest Philly, where I'm from, but locals swear West Mesa is the most baddest place on earth. Yeah, I hear you, man. If you compare West Mesa to other places in the country, you're going to be like, man, I'll take West Mesa any day of the week. Hey, Joshua Hughes says, $4.99 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. That's really nice of you. I appreciate that. He says, looking to move to Arizona sometime next year from Northern California, either downtown Phoenix or Tempe. Oh, I would say, yeah, that's a great place to start. And then you can kind of like travel around from there. I would just recommend coming here and renting for the first 6 months or a year, and then seeing where you want to end up. I think that would be the best plan. I think Tempe and Phoenix are cosmopolitan enough to where you're not going to be bored or too disappointed. You're either going to love it or you're not, and then you're going to go back. But as long as you don't buy, you're not trapped into anything, right? Oh, Jose says, I grew up in the 90s in a gang-infested town in California, and now I live in Laveen, and this feels like Disneyland. There you go. I mean, it's, and that's West Phoenix. So West Phoenix, we always say, oh, it's so dangerous over there. It's not that it's dangerous. It's just if you look at the crime statistics by data-wise, you would say, oh, that's a higher crime per capita. But if you compare it to somewhere else in the country, you're going to be like, dude, that's a safe place, really. So Laveen, it's West Phoenix. It's supposedly dangerous, but if you look at it, you go out there, you're like, this is really safe. So there you go. Is Apache Junction a safe place to live? I mean, Apache Junction is on the southeast side of Phoenix. Well, it's just south of the Superstition, or it's by Superstitions, I would say, the Usury Mountains. And there's a little bit of, riffraff, but it's safe. Yeah, it's safe. I mean, would I say like at night, like leave your car unlocked for 6 hours at a parking lot in Apache Junction, in the heart of Apache Junction? No, it's not like that safe. Whereas some places might be safe enough to do that. I don't think Apache Junction is going to be that safe, but it's nice. Alfonso says Apache Junction is a different world. That's true. Apache Junction is in a league of its own. Wow, 87 people already smashing up the likes. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. Because you know what? You guys are helping get the video out there, which makes it worthwhile to do these live streams. And I can do more of these as time goes by. Here's one from Marley. She says she's an Arizona native, and I remember getting pulled over for speeding and my window tint being too dark. Oh my gosh, the window tint thing? That is, yeah. So in Arizona, in the summertime, you want your tint to be dark because it's so hot. Like you want the best UV tint out there, right? But it's illegal. A lot of people, they actually get dark tint out here and they pay the extra money for it. And, then they get pulled over and the officer cites them and they have to go basically remove it and pay extra to remove it and then pay the citation, or sometimes it's a warning. But yeah, that's crazy, right? But let's see what else she said. She said, the police are doing their job, but we need more men in blue. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we do. We need law enforcement, right? Like, but I think people are always hesitant about that because they always flash back to like a bad or a negative interaction they have with a cop. And they're like, yeah, we want to have law enforcement on the streets, but we don't want to have guys like that one who are like, like I'll give you an example. I was living in Santan Valley. I was working, doing this, sitting at my computer. And what had happened was I parked my car on the other side of the road because they were still building the neighborhood. It was one of those construction neighborhoods that were under construction. And there was a big, not a dump truck, but a cement mixer truck out at my next door neighbor pouring the pad. So I parked my car across the street. Well, here comes this burly, like, sheriff, and he's like knocking on my door. He's like, is that your car? I'm like, looking around. I'm like, yeah, that's my car. And he goes, you're parked illegally. And I go, oh, I'm sorry about that, sir. And he's like, what? He just, the way his demeanor was coming up to my house like that, so rude and aggressive. I was kind of like, man, why you gotta be like that, dude? Like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, I'll move my car. Like, all you have to do is tell me one time and I'll move my car. But I flash back to guys like that where I'm like, okay, this guy, he just wanted to flex on me for no reason. But yeah, when you have positive interactions with police officers who are literally there to serve and protect, I think those are the best people in your community, right? They got a hard job. It's not a very easy job. So someone says she had to remove the tint. No fine. Yeah. Okay. So you got a warning to remove the tint. Shervin says, I'm a British police officer and moved to Arizona 4 months ago. So far, good. I'm very happy living in Scottsdale, but have already seen many non-Arizona residents driving around using their phone. Okay, so this is a thing. Technically, yeah, you're not supposed to text and drive in Arizona. I think that just became a new law recently. And, it's one of those things that's frustrating for other drivers on the road. I don't really have an opinion one way or another on there, but technically I'm going to say, yeah, you shouldn't be doing it. No fix-it tickets, $100 fine for no mud flaps. Mud flaps. One of the things that happens in Arizona, and I'll say this is something that happens especially on the freeways, rock chips on your windshield. You'll notice when you go to the car wash, there's always a windshield repair salesman trying to sell you a chip repair or maybe even a replacement windshield, because in Arizona, the insurance, they have I think it's called comprehensive insurance or something like that, where basically you get up to like 2 or 3 windshield replacements per year. So cracked windshields, chipped windshields, very common in Arizona. And a lot of that happens because of all the construction, the cement trucks, the dump trucks, the debris on the freeways, get the rocks, get the gravel, and those rocks just flying, crack your glass. And you live in Arizona long enough, you drive on the freeways, you'll get one or two a year. I mean, I've even had it happen on a surface street where it was just like, well, bam, crack. I was like, whoa, man, that was crazy. What was that? You think it's at first you're like, what is that? And then you look and your windshield all of a sudden just starts going, cracking. Yeah. So someone says trucks need to learn to properly tie down their stuff. He said the other word with a C, but yeah, that's a really big problem. It's not always like commercial companies. Sometimes it's just landscapers driving down the road, or sometimes it's just people moving and they got seat cushions flying out the truck. They got all these things just happening, flying out the back of their truck. So if you're going to get on a freeway, watch out for those people. I think it's very rare that there's people who don't tie down their stuff, but there are these occasional people who just have no clue what's going on, and they're dangerous with that. Someone said, yes, I had my windshield replaced and I have a chip on the new windshield again. Yeah, Lewis. Yeah, that's true. So be careful of that, guys, because, you don't always want to replace your windshield unless you absolutely need to, because you're probably going to get a lot of cracks. And you only want to do it like once a year, probably. I don't think it affects your insurance rates to do it if you have the comprehensive coverage, and it's free. It's a zero deductible typically. But some people, like if they're with Progressive or Geico, might have a $250 deductible. I don't know exactly, but rock chips in Arizona are something you got to be aware of. So that's another thing they do on the front of the hoods is they get these like this like some sort of cover. It's like a sealant that goes over the front of the hood to protect against getting rock chips on the actual hood. Someone says should be a law to cover loads. Yeah, I mean that probably is a law. Actually, I think that's dangerous. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is like if someone's carrying like block, like rock, like block brick, and that falls out of the truck because something heavy like that in a freeway, like a block, cars hit that. That's no good. That's no good. Hitting something hard and solid like that. And because people will see that, they'll swerve out of the way, which can also cause accidents. So I think those are like the worst things that can happen. Something heavy like a block or a rock falling out of a truck. Yeah, so you're hearing a lot of people saying they see a lot of people who do not cover their load. So if you're one of those types of people who doesn't plan to cover your load, make sure you do. Uh, people shouldn't tailgate. Yeah, I mean, tailgating can be a good solution to that. Let's get back to some of the other comments that were posted before. Let's see here. Born in Hawaii, but raised in SoCal Inland Empire, moved to Queen Creek a year and a half ago to get away from Cali. Has become. I'm not a political person, but I definitely lean more to the right, conservative. I want safety, tradition, and freedoms for my family. Yeah, I think that was the general consensus. It's no matter what your politics are. I'm one of those types of people. I believe in progress, right? Like I like progress. So I mean, but I also like the free market and I like freedom. Like I don't really want some like government agency trying to dictate to me. I don't like dictators. I've never been the type to be a dictator. I was in the military for 10 years and I dealt with enough of that in there. So when I got out, I was like, oh man, I love my freedom. Because when you're in the military, you're like stamped US property. It's like you got a USN stamp on your butt. Basically says you're property of the United States Navy. So when I got out, I really learned to value my freedom. But you have to be responsible with your freedom. And I think that, so yes, freedom is important. And Arizona is a freedom-loving state, but also, people need to be responsible about that so that they don't abuse it, so we can continue to all have freedom. So that's a big thing. That's a good message. Freedom-loving. I mean, I think be free. Like if you're one of those types of people who want to bring in more like restrictions and lockdowns to Arizona and limitations to opportunities for business or for anything like that, I don't think this is going to be the place for you. I'm going to be honest with you, because the general consensus for Arizona, very much a freedom-loving state. And I think most of the people from the locals, like 99% of them are going to say like, yeah, don't try to bring heavy restrictions to Arizona. Like if you like that stuff, there are places like that for you, and to each their own. Go there, enjoy it, do it, lock it down, do whatever you got to do. But I don't think Arizona is one of those types of places. Now, I know there's going to be people who are watching this video right now who are going to feel triggered, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, you need to lock it down when the time comes. Well, yeah, there might be a time to have to lock it down. I'm not saying that it won't have to happen. There could be certain circumstances where people need to shelter in place, but it shouldn't be a very long time, and it should be I'm not going to rail on about this, but I think most of you in the comments are freedom lovers. Tell me if I'm right or wrong here. Are we dealing with freedom lovers in the comments, or are we dealing with people who like lockdowns and restrictions on movement? Seriously. Someone said, isn't there a special film you can stick onto your window for protection? There's a special film that can be stuck on your hood. Actually, I have a friend who does that. He's in Scottsdale. His name's Robbie. You can go see him. This is just off the cuff. I'm going to give him a shout out. He's with Magic Bus. Go see Rob. Tell him that I sent you. I went to high school with this guy. He's like a super solid guy. So go to see Magic Bus in South Scottsdale, and he does the film over your hood. And I think he does window tint. But Magic Bus, it's around like, I want to say McKellips and somewhere around like Scottsdale Road. No, Hayden. He's on Hayden and McKellips. But I went there. He's with Magic Bus. You can look him up on Google Maps. Anyways. So let's see. We got people saying, I want to be free. I love freedom. Freedom from religion. Yeah, freedom from religion. That's a thing. I'm as you can see, I wear a cross right here. But my grandpa was one of those first people. He told me, he's like, don't wear it on your sleeve, and don't be one of those types of people who walk around with a book and hit them on the head, because that's just not going to be the way to do it. So it's constitutionally protected. Freedom from religion. It is. It's in the Constitution. Free press, freedom for religion, all that stuff. So believe what you want, but it's not your responsibility to force your beliefs onto someone else. And like I said, I say this as someone who wears a cross around my neck right now. It's not, but I'm not here to like preach or do anything like that. I'm just saying, like, hey, I think it says be the light. Be the light. That's all you got to do. You don't need to go around and tell people what to do because of your religion. And yeah, freedom of religion is a big thing. So that's a good point. I'm glad someone said that. Free press is another thing. Free speech is another thing. I mean, people are going to have their opinions in this channel. I don't think I've ever blocked anyone. The only time I ever blocked someone for something they said was when they were just spamming like crazy profanities over and over. We had like one person do that one time. But for the most part, free speech. I mean, even if they say things like, hey, you're the goofiest, dumbest person in the whole wide world, you know, I'm still going to be like, oh, really? Oh, how are you doing today, bud? You know, and I get those comments. I can tell by watching your videos that you're a down-to-earth guy, says Christopher. Thank you. Restored data. I'm not going to say that because you said some keywords, but you can read what he said. That's funny. Gambling is already legal here. I mean, it's you're talking about off the reservation. I mean, there's always a workaround for everything, right? In Arizona, your vote actually matters because it's a swing state. Yeah, oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying the margin of difference is so minimal that like everyone needs to get out and vote because your vote does count here. Although when you have like what I think Arizona's pushing like 6 million people now, that's a lot of people. We'll see. Let's see here. I try to limit the political talk, although I see what you say, John Leon. I know what you're saying. Let's see here. It's called clear bra paint protection film. Okay, there you go. The clear bra. That's what it is, running at altitude. Where's the big construction contractors out there? The contractors, you want the contractors. Wow. You mean the projects or the contractors? Big construction. I mean, when I was a kid, it was Kitchell. And I think Kitchell was the one who created Hilton Doubletree, by the way. But that my dad used to work for Kitchell. They were one of the big ones, but obviously Del Webb. I mean, in Phoenix. That's a good question. You got me thinking because I mean, they've all changed. I mean, you know, they get bought out. If you're talking housing, you have like Taylor Morrison. I see Taylor Morrison a lot. Kiewit Corporation, Arcadis. I've never even heard of those guys before. Hensel Phelps. I mean, if you want to talk about construction of the old days, it would be like Phelps Dodge, who's now become Freeport McMoran. But everyone knows about Freeport McMoran, but they're not construction, they're mining. You know, so it's someone said constitutional carry state. Yeah, I mean, people in Arizona, they don't want you to tell them that they can't carry that. I mean, the important thing is to understand that law-abiding citizens are responsible gun owners. The thing is, you have to realize there's a lot of weapons that people have in their house that are not even guns. Your car can be a weapon. I mean, we've seen this across other places in the country and across the world where people will like take their car and just hit 10 people. Like they'll just run over 10 people. I mean, that they've turned their car into a weapon. I mean, if someone's like, so really what you have is a mental health issue more so than someone having guns. I mean, knife attacks. I mean, knives are a weapon. But I think if you really wanted to get down to it, we need to be realistic about what's causing the mental health crisis. And, you know, a lot of people would say, I mean, we could speculate in the comments right now. What do you think is causing people to lose their minds? It could be stress from financial. I talk to a lot of people who have financial stress, and that leads to like anxiety and depression. And they have this gray cloud over their head from financial stress. So that's a big thing that drives people crazy. They constantly feel like they're on a hamster wheel and they get exhausted because it's like if they lose their job, they're without anything. And so that's a big problem. And how do you fix that? Well, I don't know exactly how you fix that, but we need to have that conversation about how financial stress really impacts people. People are saying social media. I mean, yeah, there's so much social media. The algorithms are basically designed that negativity gets the most clicks. Like if I donate or if you donate like $100 to Boys and Girls Club or Salvation Army, or if like Shaquille O'Neal donates like $1,000 to the Salvation Army or something, that's not going to make the news. But if Shaq does something like controversial, it'll be on Snapchat, it'll be on Instagram, and everybody will be gossiping about it. I think there was like a story like with Tyreek Hill. He's a football player. I guess he has like a few different baby moms and everything. And a lot of people are commenting about it, but it's really none of their business what this guy does. As long as he's going to pay the child support and help raise the kids, why is it someone else's business? You know, you can say, oh, well, he shouldn't have been out there having kids, this and that. Well, I mean, that's he's got to deal with that. That's not on you. That's not your responsibility. Mind your business kind of thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of that gossip going on, and I see it on apps like Snapchat, um, uh, Facebook. I mean, gossip is a big thing. Gossiping, I think that drives people manic because gossip really technically is like, it's close to being like one of the seven deadly sins. It's not one of the seven deadly sins, but it kind of is like the eighth deadly sin. So gossiping is just not a good thing. I mean, I think we all do it at some point in time, but social media gossip is really, I think, not doing us any justice. Someone says building in Prescott Valley as well. Johnny says, well, I'm a newbie, just moved to Bisbee a month ago. Wow, that's cool. You moved to Bisbee about a month and a half ago from New Jersey. I bought a house here. Wow, you moved here and bought a house in Bisbee. How's that going for you, man? Jose says, I was born poor and now I work my A off, his butt off, to keep my comma in my checking account. There you go. I mean, you know, it's like, and that's the thing. When you make your money, you want to be able to like keep adding to that, right? You don't want like someone to come along, like a tax person to come along and like try and like undermine you. You don't want high taxation because you're trying to save your money. And I think that hurts a lot of people is like the threat of like the tax man coming in and like, you know, if you've already paid your taxes and a large chunk of change, you should be able to keep your profits and put it in the bank and have the opportunity to grow that without having to have the threat constantly every year of someone coming in and like, hey, we're coming to check you out. Let's shake out your pockets. It's like, and I feel like that's kind of where they're at with that right now. And that's a little bit frustrating, especially for people who are trying to, you know, ultimately build a nest egg and retire or get a savings. And, you know, when the tax money is going overseas, it's like you're not even seeing the value in that anymore, right? So RCR says, everywhere is becoming expensive. Yeah, everywhere. I mean, that's why a lot of people are moving out of the country. If you guys follow me over on Island Hopper TV, if you look, I did a new video. I did 100 best places to visit in the United States. So if you want to go around the United States and visit 100 different places, I made a list of that so you can take a look. That's something that I would recommend. But also, I'm making the 20 best states. And I did a video on top 18 places around the world outside the United States to retire because of that very subject. Everywhere in the United States is getting expensive. So where can you retire? Places like, you know, Ecuador, Mexico, Costa Rica, Thailand, Philippines. There's 18 countries on there. And I made that video. You guys can go over there and watch that also. Yes, Island Hopper TV. Nasser, you're right. Oh, hey, we got a new channel member. SFMR Gill, welcome to being a new channel member. Good to see you. AZ is becoming unaffordable like Florida. I remember about 20 years ago. No, not 20 years ago. Less than 20 years ago. Florida used to be super cheap. Like I went to Panama City or Pensacola in around 2010, maybe 2011. And I remember it was an affordable place. And I was surprised because I was like, hey, Pensacola is pretty cool. I was talking to the taxi driver and he's like, no, it's not good here. This is not a good place. There's actually a meme on the internet. Anytime something crazy is happening, they're like, what in the Florida is going on there? You know, so because Florida's got this reputation of like having like really crazy things happening. I even saw this video of this guy. He was taunting an alligator, like a 7-foot alligator, not a big one, but a big enough one. I mean, it was 7 feet. I mean, there's a little skinny one, but he was like going like this. He was like he thought he was like going to dominate the alligator. And that he was for probably about the first 30 seconds of the video. But then the alligator went boom and got his hand. And the alligator did a death roll on him. And, you know, you're just like, what was the guy thinking taunting an alligator? Like, dude, you're not going to get over on an alligator. I saw another guy do the same thing with a bear. Like he was probably drinking a little bit and he was trying to escort the bear out of the campsite. Well, as he was like walking with the bear out of the campsite, there was a gate. And as he got closer to the gate, the bear stopped and was like, hey, are you trying to corner me? Because the bear noticed that there was only one way out. And the bear attacked him, like went boom, like sliced his whole side with the claw. And bears don't have nail file, so they have long nails. And those are things that people do where you're just kind of like Darwin Award of the Year right there. I mean, I don't know why people would do that, but they're probably drinking, right? Alfonso says, love your channel. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. We got 161 likes, 193 people watching right now. Lots of comments, and I'm trying to read them all as they're coming in. Arizona locals giving information to newbies. This is really important because it's a video that people have been asking for, especially the locals. Bears don't have nail files. Yeah, I mean the bear's not going to the nail spa to get his nail site. So if a bear's going to claw you, yeah, that's the biggest thing probably with the bears that I would be worried about, especially in Arizona. The claw. If he's going to swat you, try not to get too close to let a bear swat you. But yeah, it's a joke. It's tongue in cheek. Yeah. Things are way worse than anyone can fathom, says for pit bulls across America. Elaborate on that. What do you mean? I try to remain optimistic, but I see what you're saying. There is some things in the country that you kind of say, what is going on here? Like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I could elaborate, but then it would be too political and people would get put off by it. But there are things going on in the country that just don't make sense. I would definitely agree. And because of that, you do become concerned about the future of the country. I went to Dutch Bros today and I said, Merry Christmas. I had my Dutch Bros. I actually didn't drink coffee for a year. I fasted from coffee, but I got back into it since I came back. And it looked like that upset the young lady. She was all nice to me. She was nice to me. We had a conversation, but the second I said Merry Christmas, she kind of snarled about it. And it made me wonder, like, in her college or wherever she's coming from, is she being like told that Merry Christmas is a bad thing or something like that? It was kind of like saying like, hey, being a patriotic American is a good thing. But now I feel like young people are being brought up to not think that, which to me is weird. I mean, I'm the type of guy who pulls for everything Arizona because that's where I'm from. So if I'm from America, like, I love my country, I love my state, I love my city. So you'll see me. I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, Arizona Cardinals fan, Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Diamondbacks, Arizona State, Arizona NAU. Like, those are my teams because that's my home. That's where I come from. But I feel like kids are being brought up in this new generation to like not love where they're from. And they actually have a lot of mental health issues because they also end up hating their parents as they're growing up, which to me doesn't make much sense. No matter if your parents are not perfect or not. I mean, I didn't have perfect parents. I mean, there was a lot of times when my parents still, they frustrate me today, but love your father and your mother, right? Like, respect your father and your mother, even if you don't, because that's your ancestral line. That's where you come from. So to hate them would be to hate yourself ultimately. So to hate where you're coming from, whether it be your state or your country, I don't think that's a healthy frame of mind. But I think people are being told to not love their country because all the negatives are being brought to the light more so than the positives. America's not perfect. I mean, we've got a lot of things that we can learn from. I think that's what it is. It's like our past. I think it's okay to feel a little bit of guilt and feel a little bit of remorse because that shows you're not a sociopath, right? It shows you're not a psycho. So it's good to have a little bit of like remorse, but you don't want to sit there and like dwell on it and let it impact your past, impact your future, right? So it's once you've already come to terms with the fact that in your heart, you feel sympathy for the situation and you don't want to keep hurting people, then you can rest assured knowing that you're a good person, knowing that ultimately you have a heart. You're not a total narcissist sociopath, right? And I think most people are like that, but that's the past of America. There's some things that we can be ashamed of, but we shouldn't focus on the negatives. We should focus on moving forward and how to be strong together. Even the state of Arizona is the same way. Someone says, yeah, there's no manual on how to raise your kids. I mean, raising kids in this day and age, I don't know. I mean, my mom, she works at a school. She was telling me, I don't remember kids in your class doing all these crazy things. She said a lot of the kids in the classroom, they're very messy. Like, I guess this is what she was asking me. And she was saying, do you remember kids being really messy in the classroom and not being able to sit still? And I remember I was like one of them. I was one of the ones that I was a little bit of a class clown, to be honest with you. So I'm like, oh, well, that was always But the things that she was saying, I felt like it went above and beyond, and there was more kids acting up. And I said, well, maybe it's the high fructose corn syrup, or maybe it's the sugar. That maybe there's a lot of like food that's making the kids get a little bit more, uppity like that. And she said, well, what she thinks it is she thinks there was a lot of young mothers in the last like 10 to 20 years who were doing like drinking alcohol and taking prescription pills and Adderall and like other drugs while they were pregnant. So she thinks there was a rise in pregnancy, doing drugs and alcohol, and not stopping some of the pharmaceuticals, which led to some of this. I don't know, but that was her theory. I mean, she doesn't know. No one knows exactly why this is the case, but she was saying she's noticed a lot of the kids are like that. And this is in the area of the Verde Valley. Mark says, Merry Christmas from Lake Havasu. Merry Christmas. How's the weather out in Lake Havasu right now? In Phoenix, in Mesa, raining all day, totally wet. We had a lot of wetness today. Restored Data says processed foods, chemical, and preservatives. I mean, one that's come up is the red dye. Anything that's dyed red that's not a natural color, like a strawberry, that's okay. That's a natural red color. But things like candies that have red dye, supposedly not very good for kids. So that was something that came up. There's a lot of comments that came in that are a little bit political, so I'm going to kind of overlook those. But hopefully, the next one I pick doesn't lean down too much to the politics there. Someone says Arizona is too expensive. Oh yeah, I mean prices are up 35%. You'll hear people throw around these numbers, and I don't know where the government gets these data numbers. Thank you to the 177 people who smashed the likes, by the way. Let's get it to 200, and we'll keep going even longer. We're at 46 minutes in, 201 people watching. So we're really driving this one pretty good. Like the lid, Jeff, it's got a Hunger Games logo. This is the Phoenix bird right here, okay? Yeah, the Hunger Games. That's funny. Yeah, I noticed not too many people fly Arizona flags outside their homes. I see more of that in Colorado and Texas. There's the Arizona flag right there. I think it's a cool flag. I think it's a cool flag. It's we're the Copper State, and then you've got Arizona's known for the sunsets and sunrises. So that's really what you're looking at there, the Copper State and the sunset. And that's what that's when when the person designed that flag, that's what came to mind. Copper and sunset. Nowadays, most people don't even think about copper. I think most people, they don't even know where the Grand Canyon State, or the Copper State, also known as the Grand Canyon State. Those are like our two nicknames. Sarra Vista, let's talk about it. Well, Sarra Vista, I mean, I don't really know much about Sarra Vista, but it seemed like the last few times I went down there, it was just really a military town. I mean, they had a lot of chain restaurants. It's a beautiful environment, but a lot of military are there. It seemed like at least 50% of the people that were in the restaurant eating were military. And I have nothing against that. They're Army, Fort Huachuca. Other than that, close to the border, nice weather. I think it's got a good climate there. It doesn't quite snow, but it gets a little chilly. Like right now, it's probably a bit chilly. It's a higher elevation, beautiful monsoon season right on the border. I don't know what else we would say about Sarra Vista other than that. So I talked about it. How about that? My rent and utilities, $2,400 a month. So I bought some land and will build on it. That's exciting. That is exciting. I think that's right now the American dream is buy land and build on it. Anyone who's able to achieve that, because that is just the funnest project, to customize your own plot of land and build. I mean, that is truly the American dream. So congratulations to you for that. And I'm sure you'll pull it off within like 5 to 10 years. I think that whatever you build will come to fruition. What do you want to know about Sarra Vista, says JW? I mean, what do you want to know about it? Richard says, Wisconsin flag is beautiful. I'm sure it is. I don't really know. I'm trying to remember what that looked like. Are they lying to us about the supply of homes? Oh, wow. So if we get into the conversation about homes, what we think the market's going to do. Some people I follow on social media say the market's going to tank and the worst is yet to come. But then like the markets are telling me something else. Bitcoin cryptocurrency looking like it's going to be a big year for that market, for the digital assets market. The stock market all across the board, especially the S&P 500 or like the Nasdaq, that appears to be strong. So those two markets appear to be strong. And then the next factor is going to be whether or not they're going to lower the interest rates, because if they lower the interest rates, then you have again more people wanting to buy. The thing that is the real weird part is most of it is still overly priced. And so what has to happen is there has to be a way for people to be getting more money in their pockets. And that's not really happening. I'm not really hearing about, I mean, they raised minimum wage to like 14.25 in Arizona. We've had this conversation about minimum wage mandates. I don't think they work very well. Unless you're working for McDonald's or some corporation, that's good. But to mandate a small business to do minimum wage is not good, unless the goal is to eliminate the middle class and small business owners. But it's funny because the government says the small business owners in the middle class are the heart and soul of this country because, that's the working class. But it seems like they're not really too interested in protecting it. Who they're really interested in protecting is the corporations. Seems like the corporations get all the good luck. They don't pay any taxes. They've found all the loopholes to go offshore with their companies. I mean, the major companies are like headquartered in Ireland and like some island out in the Caribbean. And they're the ones who have all the money, but the ones who are stuck with the bill for the taxes are you, the middle class. And so I don't think that's very fair. I don't understand why they're doing that. Mike says, Jeff from Altcoin Buzz. Yeah, that would be me. I did have Altcoin Buzz, the cryptocurrency channel. I have another one called Blockchain Bulls, and I'm thinking about doing some videos. I'm just kind of waiting on the market. I actually bought some altcoins today. Over the last couple of days, I swapped some Ethereum into some altcoins, but they're mostly just fun ones, like lotto tickets. It's a little bit better than a lotto ticket, but yeah, I mean, if it could easily go to zero. But I had one. The reason is because I had one that I was holding for 2 years that went up like 20x. Like one day I woke up and I looked at my Coinbase wallet and it went from like $2,000 balance to 10,000. I didn't sell it, so I don't have a capital gains tax on it, but my account balance went from 2,000 to 10,000 just like that. And I was like, okay, I'm back in the game. I got to start paying attention again. And it was called Etherland, one of the metaverse coins. I mean, it was worth like $300 like last week. And then I check it, and it's all of a sudden worth like $8,000. So once I saw that, I was like, okay, time to start buying some altcoins again. But, all you have to do is have like one or two hit the jackpot and you can have like 40 like lose out, So, Mike says, I used to watch you on Altcoin Buzz. Nice. First name, last name. Now the IRS wants to know about your crypto, anything. Yeah, they want to know all that. I mean, I had to pay a large chunk of money in 2021 for it, and it really frustrated me because it's not the money you take out of the market. It's just your trading, right? So you run one of those reports and it tells you that you did like X amount of transactions and then you owe all like, 30 or 20% on it, depending on how long you held it. And you only take out a certain amount. So you're basically giving them like half of whatever you netted. And then the next year in 2022, the market went down. So I had a loss, but they didn't actually. So I'm just like, oh man. So I didn't, I barely even profited from any of it because the tax man. That was what it was. If it wasn't for the tax man, I would have been great. But they took away from my opportunity to retire. Sorry. I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, that's kind of frustrating, right? The IRS is the gift that keeps on taking for the last 125 years. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's not. They're not friendly. Not friendly. I want to say positive things about it. Like I was trying to like sit in the look at the mirror and be like, I love the IRS. I love the IRS. They're so nice. Because I was trying not to think anything negative about these people. I was just trying to like reverse my mind psychology about it. Fern says, yeah, I invest in gold. Crypto is a scam. I don't know if crypto is a scam. I mean, there's there's opportunities with it, and then there's like some real opportunities to lose. I think it's timing is everything. But with gold, yes, I have some gold coins. Uh, you know, I've bought over the years silver and gold also, but those don't go up in price. You're not going to have like a once in a lifetime opportunity to change your wealth. You're just going to be able to preserve your wealth, and it's going to go up. Maybe like I think gold last year was around $1,800 per ounce, and now it's around like what 21 or 2,200. I don't know the exact price. I just know that gold doesn't really go up much. Invest in real estate to offset your taxes. File K1 on a cheap rental to buy. Dude, I need, if you guys have a great tax person, let me know. I would love to talk to them because I need a great tax person. The people that I use now, I feel like they're such a big company. Like they're hard to get a hold of. And I got to like schedule a call, and their schedule is like a week out. And then when I get on a call, I feel like it's rushed anyway. So I don't really get the proper advice. And I'm paying a lot of money to them because paying your accountant is a tax on top of the tax. What you pay your accountant, like 2,000 or 3,000 a year, just for filing your taxes, that doesn't include the quarterly reports and then the profit and loss. I mean, it comes out to around $5,000 to $6,000 just what you pay for accounting, and that doesn't even include what you have to pay the tax. So it's kind of like, this is not good. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that. Sorry. And anyone who thinks that's fun, I'm like, what do you do? What do you do for work where you think that's awesome? Anyways, moving on from that. Someone says we all need a tax person. They know that and they charge accordingly. So true. So true. It's overly complicated. It is superly overcomplicated, and that's part of the problem. I think the book is like that thick. I mean, I think there's like 2 books now. Arizona rain today. Mesquite smells are great. Yeah, there's mesquite, and then there's creosote. Are you sure it's mesquite and not creosote? Creosote's the one that smells the best. I mean, creosote is like the smell of the desert that you want to like. I wouldn't necessarily say you want wet creosote smell in your house. It's not like sandalwood or anything, or lavender, but it's still a nice smell. I mean, it's a nice smell to go outside and smell that, I would definitely say. Someone says, oh man, yeah, creosote, yeah. Average home sales price in Phoenix is $440,000 and Denver is $550,000. I'm almost at the point where I'm not so sure that home ownership makes sense right now. Hey, we got 200 likes. Thanks to everyone who crushed the likes. I'm not so sure that home ownership, and I'll tell you why I'm not so sure home ownership makes sense at these prices. The price alone plus you have your mortgage, then you have the homeowners fee, and that can be anywhere between 150. Typically, it's like 240. Mine's 240 for condo, plus a little bit extra for a housing development can be around like 400 extra a month on top of your mortgage, right? So that's like a hidden cost that you have to take into consideration. If you're one of those types of people who has to pay $400 a month for homeowners association times 12, I mean, what's the numbers on that? Run the math. That's like 4,000 or 5,000 a year, 3 or 4 or 5,000 a year. Every year for 10 years. I mean, that adds up to around like 40, depending on how long you stay in the house and all that, that's around like 40,000. So if your house just appreciates 40,000 in profit over the 10-year period, which typically it may or may not, I don't know. Right now, a lot of people who bought in 2022 are underwater. They owe more than what it's worth. So in that case, they're really getting burned right now by that investment in home real estate because the prices are lower than where they bought it because housing prices are down like 12% over the year. But that's one factor. That's why you notice I'm not out here telling people, hey, now's the time to buy. In 2018, if you watch this channel, I was telling people it's a good time to buy because it really was. If you bought a house in 2018, you almost doubled your money, almost. Seriously. So timing is everything. But right now, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a good time to buy houses, to be honest with you. And so we just in the homeowners association fees, taking that 40,000 thereabouts over a 10-year period or whatever the actual number is. And that doesn't include maintenance. So how much does it cost to maintain your home? Every 10 years in Phoenix, you need a new aircon. That's going to cost you anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 a year. You might also do home repairs, new tiles, new outdoor patio stuff. So when everything's said and done, unless you doubled your money and you bought at the right time, most of the time it's not really that good of an investment. You're just, if you're lucky, you'll make back the amount of money you put into it. You know, so HOA is no for me. My property rules. This is American, darn it. Yeah, if you wanted to get out of the HOA, I would say that's probably the best thing. I mean, the HOA right there is a tax. Okay, property tax. There's another thing they're going to get on you, property tax. So, I mean, home ownership, you don't have that when you rent. Time to abolish the HOAs. HOAs, and it's crazy because, like, I'll talk to my neighbors. They'll be like, I actually like the HOA. I think they're doing a great job. And I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, they help preserve the value of the neighborhood, and I'm like, okay, all right. RCR, there's a good question. Okay, so people are actually asking about the mayor, like I said, or the governor. I'm not going to get into the conversation about politics because it puts a lot of people off. A lot of people are not in a frame of mind to be able to handle that conversation. And it's not that they're bad people or anything. It's just they really don't have the patience for it. So I can't really get into the conversation, even if I agree or disagree, and I want to say something. It's just I try to remain agnostic because that's when people get all huffy puffy on the channel is when I start talking about it. But you guys can read the conversation in the chat if you guys want to see what they're talking about. Our HOA is $562 a month, but we paid off our home in 2018. We sold our home in Tempe. Wow. Good thing you paid off your home. I mean, but the thing is, whoever buys that house is going to be stuck with a $562 a month HOA, and that doesn't include property tax. So, I mean, that comes out to around almost $5,000 to $6,000 per year just in HOA fees. Sai says, I cut my grass when I feel like it. Don't need no person telling me how tall it should be. Yeah, I mean, you're a responsible person. You cut your grass when it needs to be cut. You clean up your yard when it needs to be cut. I would say that etiquette, manners, cleanliness are important things a society should have. And it's totally possible for America to have that. In Japan, for example, everyone is very tidy, organized, and clean. You rarely see any sort of filth or, I mean, it's part of the culture to be organized and tidy. In America, I don't think we have that kind of culture anymore where, I mean, there's definitely like a large percentage of people who take care of their stuff, right? They take care of their car. Like I was having this conversation with someone. We were talking about like when something breaks in my house, I always want to fix it. I hate having something broken, whether it's a light switch or something broken, a tile. Anytime something's broken, I got to fix it because it's like you could call it OCD or whatever. But it's same thing with my car. If something's broken on my car, I got to fix it. It's like becomes an obsession with me. But a lot of people that when they have things break, they just it broke. One of the classic things, you go into someone's house and their fire alarm's chirping, and you say, "Hey, your fire alarm is chirping?" Yeah, it's been chirping or they'll say, "No, I barely even notice it." I notice it because I go in your house and your fire alarm's chirping. I know how to fix it. So I even put out a public service announcement. I said, hey, if your fire alarm is chirping, I'll tell you, just DM me and I'll tell you how to shut off your fire alarm from chirping. That's just an example of something that drives me nuts is a fire alarm chirping, along with like a broken door handle, a broken light switch, a light that doesn't work. I like upkeep, but I've noticed there's a lot of people out there who just let it slide. And that's like when a civilization or a society starts going down that path where we don't fix broken things on our cars or on our houses, I think I don't think that's a good thing. I think young kids, they might get away with it, but as you age and get older, you should want to take care of your stuff. It's like taking care of your body, right? I mean, it's important. It's treat your house like it's a temple or treat your body like it's a temple, right? So that's just my opinion on that. Someone says, I like the idea of a front lawn of rocks and a few shrubs. Yeah, I mean, if you're one of those types of people who don't like to upkeep your house and mow the lawn because that's annoying, maybe you go out of town, maybe you just don't have the time for it, get a front yard that's low maintenance. You don't need a high maintenance yard. Easy as that. Made in USA says turn the radio up. Bill Pike says I like the idea of. Oh yeah, he said that. CVS has a sale on 9-volt batteries. Hey, cool. 9-volt batteries. Actually, I'll just tell you, when I came back from Asia, I was over there for 7 months, right here recently in 2023. Went to 11 countries, and I came back and my fire alarm was chirping because I wasn't here. The battery went out, and I first thing I did right when I walked in the door was like, oh, need to get the 9-volt, replace the battery. That'll solve it. Well, the noise didn't stop, and I'm like, hey, the noise didn't stop. So technically, when that happens, when the battery dies and there's still that sound, you actually have to hold the button. I think it says hold. You just hold that button and drain out any sort of residual sound that's in that fire alarm, and it'll go away. And it's that easy because there's a lot of people, they just replace the 9-volt battery and the sound's still there. It still chirps. And they're like, I give up. They're like, I give up. They just give up because they don't know that you actually have to hold the button to squeeze out any residual sound, and that fixes it. There you go. Someone says, the channel is interesting until you start sounding like Trump, then it's vomit. See, even when I don't talk about anything like that, someone still makes a comment. So I appreciate your comment. I mean, I'm a free speech person, but I didn't even say anything, and I made an effort not to speak on politics, but you still can't please everyone. And I don't think they're really giving me too much grief, but the comment still was there. It was said, right? Anyone who's watched Jeff knows he stays out of politics, says Kyle. Yeah, I try to. Now, if you're around me in person and we're having a beer, I mean, we'll talk about anything. We'll talk about literally anything. And I'm not an aggressive person. Like, I'm not going to try and fight you over politics. You can have a conversation with anything with me, even if I disagree with you, whether it be sports. Like, it was like, when the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl in 2008 and I was in Tampa Bay, and we were like totally outnumbered. The Cardinals fans, it was the good year when Kurt Warner took us to the Super Bowl. We were in Steeler country, and so many Steeler fans were there. And I mean, I would get into the conversation with them. They couldn't trigger me. I was just like, hey, we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about statistics. I think Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald is going to happen. And it did. And, it is what it is. But there's some fans, like, they will want to fight you if you talk about their team. So, it is what it is. But when it comes to politics or football or basketball, I mean, we can agree to disagree all day long and have the conversation. And I think it's great. I think it's fun. And someone said, and by the way, Jeff likes fish. Okay. RCR says, so hated that Super Bowl. His left foot never hit the ground. Oh, you're talking about Santonio Holmes in the end zone. Yeah, that was, man, I thought when Larry Fitzgerald caught that and ran it in for a touchdown, I bought everyone around me a shot. Like, I thought it was going to happen. Arizona was going to bring home the Lombardi trophy. Like, I was like, this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, what? That was how it was for me. Yeah. The Cardinals have had a good year. You sure they didn't have a Chandler? Oh man. Yeah. Good. I mean, the Cardinal Stadium being out there on the west side nearby, good year, but we need some more good years and less Chandlers. Miami Dolphins this year. I mean, the Dolphins look good. Although a lot of people are fans of Mike McDaniel. I don't know. I'm not so sold on. Dude, the guy is doing amazing things in Miami that Miami was never able to do. But when I watch an interview with Mike McDaniel, I'm kind of like, is this guy the best coach in the league? I mean, Kyle Shanahan might have something to say about it when it comes down to it, but we'll see. How come the football team is called the Cardinals? I've never seen one in town. Okay, so I know why they're called the Cardinals. So one of the things is the Cardinals are one of the oldest franchises in the NFL. They originated in Chicago. From Chicago, they moved to St. Louis. But then they moved to Phoenix in like 1987, and they were called the Phoenix Cardinals. And then in like around the 2000s, right before we built the new stadium, we became the Arizona Cardinals. So the franchise moved. The family that's owned it, called the Bill Bidwell, Bill Bidwell. That's the owner. There are some Cardinals here in Arizona, though, like the birds, the canary. Now, as far as the actual logo goes, the canary, it's one of the reasons they've never really been able to build a fan base is probably because of the logo. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lamb. Thank you. Appreciate it. The flag. Yeah, the flag behind me. It's definitely. Dodgers signed Ohtani for $700 million. Yeah, and they just signed another Japanese pitcher to like $192 million over some period of time, and they're finding a way to like divert all that. But here's the interesting thing: the Diamondbacks this offseason have one of the highest payrolls in all of baseball, which is smart because Phoenix is a big city. Back in 2001, Phoenix was all about the Diamondbacks when we had Randy Johnson, Matt Williams, Jay Bell, Mark Grace. You guys remember, you could go to Bank One Ballpark and it would be a full house in Bank One Ballpark. But over the last 10 years with the new owner, that was when Jerry Colangelo owned the team. You know, people are saying, bring back the teal and purple. But the big thing that impressed me was this year the Diamondbacks made the necessary investment, and we have one of the highest payrolls, although that doesn't always pan out, as we saw last year with the New York Mets. But either way, we'll see. I don't know how many people want to talk sports. I don't know how many people in the comments are even sports fans but it's for me, I'm a sports fan. The Suns are not doing good this year, as good as we thought, right? They're barely over 500. The Arizona Roadrunners. Oh my gosh. I went to a Roadrunners game before we had the Coyotes. I guess the Coyotes are going to stay in Arizona. So that's great. I wish they'd quit with the damn fireworks all year round in Phoenix, all throughout the night. Hey, Mar, that's a good comment. I was actually driving down the road here in Mesa. I saw the fireworks stand. I'm like, oh gosh. And then I went to Walmart today and I saw the fireworks for sale for $30.98 for year round. The firework thing. When I'm the one lighting off the fireworks, I love fireworks. When I'm not the one lighting off the fireworks and I'm sitting in my house and I got to hear the fireworks, I don't like fireworks. And I don't light off many fireworks. So that's how I feel about fireworks. I love them when I'm the one shooting them off, but I hate them when I'm not the one shooting them off. And I know that dogs don't like them. My little dog that I had, he was not a big fan of fireworks. He was really scared. Fireworks or firecrackers? No, they're fireworks. We have fireworks here. In the 90s, it was the idea of having fireworks in Arizona was like fire danger mega time. Like you would never have Arizona have fireworks. It was illegal to shoot off fireworks in the 90s. And nowadays they legalized it. You can shoot off fireworks, not firecrackers, fireworks. Used to be you could only do like little firecrackers. And they had to be like not bottle caps, but little popper firecrackers. Richard says, advertisement interrupted what you were saying. Oh, man. Okay. That's YouTube. I mean, YouTube's got to make their money, right? All right. So we got 230 likes. If you guys get it up a little bit, we can keep going. And then we'll talk about something else also. Do you collect cactus, folks? Arizona is perfect for that. Cactus, folks? Cactus. Oh, you mean like a cactus garden? My dad used to have a cactus garden at our old house. He had cactus from all around the world. One of the most beautiful places to get cactus is down in the Baja because they have so many diversity in cactus down there. But if that's what you're talking about, like a cactus garden. Have I lived in Arizona my life? No, I lived here from 0 to 20. And then I went into the military and I was in the Navy. And with that, all of that, I lived in California because I was stationed. I was in the Pacific Fleet. So if you know anything about the Navy, you have the Atlantic Fleet and you have the Pacific Fleet. So I was on the Pacific Fleet. Pacific Fleet is mostly stationed in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor, California at San Diego, or Bremerton or Everett, Washington. Those are like the strategic bases for the Navy. So we were in California, but we were a land-based aviation squadron, and we were. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Top Gun, but if you guys remember Top Gun, they were in California at NAS Miramar. I was stationed at an air base called Lemoore, and Lemoore is actually the new area where the Top Gun is. So Miramar is now a Marine Corps MCAS. If you go south, they have Coronado Naval Air Station, but our pilots would go down there occasionally, but that's not where they actually keep the squadrons. The squadrons are at Lemoore Naval Air Station in the San Joaquin Valley. So there you go. Yeah, if people say go back to California, Jeff, they'll say, hey, wait, you know, when you're a kid, they're like, join the military, go serve your country, do what you got to do, serve your country. And then they find out you're in California. They're like, oh, sell out, you're in California. Yeah, you can't win with these people, I swear. Someone said I was at Hickam in Hawaii. Yeah, my brother was at, oh man, what's that Marine Corps base down there? Hickam's Air Force Base, but what is the name of the Marine Corps base? I went and saw him when our ship pulled in to Pearl Harbor. I was on the USS Abraham Lincoln, for those of you who are keeping score at home. The USS Abraham Lincoln, CVN 72. It's an older carrier by now. Even it was a pretty old carrier by the time I was in, because they were already at CVN 76, the USS Ronald Reagan. Nowadays, they have like the George Bush, the Gerald Ford carriers, which are like super carriers. I mean, if I was on the Ronald Reagan, that would have been great. But I was on we called it the stinking Lincoln. But we pulled into K-Bay, Kaneohe Bay. No, K-Bay. And I was 21. My brother was like 19. And we pulled into Pearl Harbor, and I was like, hey, can we come see you and hang out? I hung out with Marines, and I was like, dude, these are different. Marines are different than Navy. The things they talked about were totally, the things they talked about were just, to me, just crazy. Schofield Barracks. Yeah. No, K-Bay is different than Schofield Barracks. K-Bay is over there by Kilauea or Kailua. Yeah, there's a few Air Force bases, or there's a few military bases in Arizona. You have Fort Huachuca in Sarra Vista. You used to have Barry Goldwater Bombing Range, which is south of Phoenix, down there by Gila Bend area, that desert out there just north of Tohono O'odham, Native American. There was a bombing range, but I don't think it's open anymore. In fact, if you go down towards Yuma, you'll see there's a lot of like testing grounds, proving grounds for military and for Chevy and GMC. You guys have probably seen that. But Marines, I mean, my brother went in the Marines because of the recruiter that was trying to recruit me for the Marines, called my house, and my brother picked up. And he's like, no, my brother moved out. And he's like, well, what about you? You want to join the Marines? And next thing I know, my brother's, on the plane eating baked beans in boot camp and going to Iraq. And I'm like, dude, I can't let my little brother go. So I had to do something, right? Marines have no chill. I was on CVN 68 Security Forces, Everett, Washington. Yeah, Marines, I mean, when they come on board, they would come on the carrier because we would bring on a VMFA, fixed wing fighter attack Marine squadron. And they're different. The Marines are totally different than a naval squadron. If you've ever been on an aircraft carrier, you'll see it. Marines can get things done. I mean, you have to be a little bit crazy to be a Marine to begin with, because the Marines are the tip of the spear, as we would call it. When the war happens, the first ones to do the land invasion, the first ones in there are the Marines. Because the Army's the ones, once the Marines go in there and wreck house and clean it up and make it possible, then they bring in the CBs and the air base builders, and then they build the air base, Bagram and all those gets hunkered down, they start building, and then the Army comes down and holds down the fort. And the Marines actually end up getting deployed to go further into the country, like in Afghanistan. There's one video out there, if you guys are ever in the mood to watch the coolest, I say the coolest because these are the coolest group of guys. This is my generation of military guys. So I know who they are. They're Marines, different than Navy, obviously, but I know the guys, I know the characters, I know because, like I said, my brother was there and all that. He was a Marine. The movie's called Restrepo. And the movie is called Rest Repo. It was on Netflix. And if you ever watch it, you'll see that when so the name is, it comes from one of the guys who was killed in the Kandahar Valley, but it was about a bunch of Marines, about 200 of them, and they had to have an advanced forward position in the Kandahar Valley, and they were surrounded by Taliban the whole time for like 6 or 7 months, maybe even I think it was like a 10-month deployment, and they would come under firefights, and there was a documentary team filming it the whole time. So every time they would encounter a firefight, snipers, whatever, and your heart goes out to those guys because you think like, man, how did you live like that for 10 months, constantly under threat, rocket mortars, all these things, forward advanced position. So yeah, when someone says they got respect for the Marines and those guys are crazy, they're not. You have to be crazy in order to even accept to live like that in foreign territory, in hostile territory, where combat is potential every single day. You're waking up to the possibility of combat. It's almost like living in hell. Like Americans, they wake up and they're like, oh man, I got another day at work. It's like, try waking up in Kandahar for every day for 6 or 7 months or whatever it is. Someone says, spell that Kandahar. You want me to spell Kandahar? Someone said they're enjoying the beautiful rain. Yeah, the rain is amazing. We'll see. Someone said 100 sailors go out, 50 couples come back. Oh man. Those jokes obviously come back. We used to have jokes for Marines too. What does Marine stand for? My automatic rifle still never ever shot. Or that was something that we would say when it was peacetime, like in the 90s. That's where that saying came from. But obviously, from 2003 to 2012, they saw a lot of action, so that nickname had to go out the window. Have you ever seen auto accidents there on the 101 I-17, even just on Hayden or Scottsdale Road? Oh yeah, like there's accidents. You'll just drive down the road on the surface streets of Mesa, and you're not going to actually maybe see like the actual accident, but you'll see there's like police on the scene because there was an accident, and you'll see the people like sitting on the curb going like this, and you're like, I hope they're okay, stuff like that. Or you'll hear sirens pretty much 2 or 3 times a week, like going somewhere. Like you'll hear the fire truck go by, you hear the ambulance. That's just living in Mesa. I mean, that's how it is. Oh yeah, see, Mr. Bush knows. And then that's the one I couldn't say. I was gonna say that one first, but it had the ASS that I couldn't say. So I was like, I'll just use the other one. Someone say us Air Force folks get accused of being the chair force. Oh, dude, we called the chair force all the time. We went out to Nellis. So we went out to Nellis. We're used to staying in Navy barracks. Navy barracks are better than Army and Marine barracks. Like I went to the K Bay barracks, the Schofield barracks in Hawaii. Oh, dude, those are horrible. Compared to the Navy barracks, we had better barracks. But if your ship's company, you have to live on the ship, right? But then we go out to the Air Force base, and I'm like, what is this? This is like, I want to live in the Air Force barracks. Even when we went out to Luke Air Force Base, you guys earned the name Chair Force. You guys, that's legit. That's a legit name. Like the name Chair Force, like, hey, respect to you guys. You guys are smarter. You guys are a little bit more. You guys are like the country club of the military. I mean, I was always kind of jealous of the Coast Guard and the Air Force, and I always wonder why I didn't go there. But the Coast Guard doesn't get to travel the world like the Navy. So, Francisco says, "Go Navy, beat Army." I almost cried the first time I ate at an Air Force galley. It was so good. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You compare that to a Gedunk or a Navy galley. I almost forgot all the names because like in the Navy, you have like totally different names. Like you call a wall a bulkhead. You call the floor the deck. I mean, there's a lot of different words. And the longer I was away from it, the more I've kind of forgotten it. But when I have these kind of conversations, I remember it. But going to the galley in Air Force Base, oh my gosh, so good. The barracks, the galley, you guys just had it too good. Yeah, the Air Force, man. My daughter is retired Navy and Air Force. Oh, she did both. That's cool. Yeah, I know. I know a lot of guys. We had this one guy. His name was Armstrong, and when he was in the Navy in our squadron, aviation ordnance, he would always talk about how he wanted to be in the Army because he was like, "Oh, I want to go to war." He always wanted to. He was born in the Navy. He didn't like loading bombs. He liked actually like because he used to do Civil War reenactment back in Missouri. This guy would always tell the craziest stories. He was like maybe 5'6", 130 pounds, very like small. But he said in high school he was a linebacker, and he tried to say that he had like 6 defensive touchdowns and all these things. And we always used to get him going, tell stories. Well, one day he's like telling me a story about a sensei. Sensei used to teach him all this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's wild. And he used to sit there and be like, I'm going to the Army. And I wasn't sure if I believe him. Well, sure enough, Armstrong went to the Army. So we called him Army Strong. The whole time he was in there, we are like, Army Strong. But he ended up going to the Navy or the Army. He calls me up like 6 months ago and he starts telling me all these stories about how many kills he had and all this. I'm like, see, I don't know. Like, this dude's always in some sort of action or whatever. But I was just like, I never question his stories, but in my mind, I'm always like, yeah, right, dude, yeah, right. Like, I mean, he was the type, he had like all these crazy stories. I think we all know one of those people who is like a vet who has like all these crazy stories, because technically the ones who have those kind of stories, they don't talk about it. So when someone does open up and starts just dropping a lot of stuff like that, Daniela says, are you a real estate agent? No, I'm not. I'm not a real estate agent. My brother's a real estate agent, but I'm not. I almost became a real estate agent, especially when I had this channel, because everyone was like, dude, you should sell real estate. And then I went and like started reading the book, and I was like, heck no, forget that. Forget that. Forget that. Hey, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's getting late. I was thinking about going to the casino here soon. Now that it's holiday season, I was just gonna, because I'm going to my sister's for Christmas. That's why I'm doing the live feed tonight, because tomorrow I was thinking about going to one of the casinos. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. If you guys want me to keep going, let me know if you want me to keep going, or we can finish it here. 1 hour and 26 minutes in. I don't really have too much going on, but M. Bush says it's like the guy that tells you he's a Navy SEAL first minute of meeting you. Yeah, the Navy SEAL story, or they went to Buds, but they got discharged, or they made it to the last week of Buds, and they got injured, so they couldn't finish. We all know those guys, right? When I was in the Navy, it seemed like a lot of the guys used to say that they were pilots, or that they like that was what they used to tell the girls. They'd be like, they're pilots. And I never wanted to be in that situation where I was having to like lie about it. But there were some guys, they'd be like, hey, if anyone asks, we're pilots. So I guess like there's like levels to like being in the military. I was just an enlisted bomb loader. They call them BB stackers, although we did a lot more than that. But you know, it wasn't like the most cool thing to tell someone that, hey, I load bombs on jets. The cool thing to do was be a Navy SEAL or be a pilot. Most people in the special warfare community don't brag about it. They are humble, are usually wiry dudes, not a lot of Hollywood bodybuilder types. Yeah, like I remember the first time when we saw SEALs when they landed on our ship when we were in Afghanistan off the coast in the Gulf of Arabian Sea, not the Persian Gulf. We were in the Arabian Sea, and that was one of the more unique situations. There was like a movie. I remember it was straight out of a movie for us. I can't remember the movie. Some of you might have known the movie Clear and Present Danger, I think it was called. We literally had a moment like that where Petraeus came on board and met with the Afghanistan general, and they didn't tell us about it. We went into this thing called River City. River City is when they shut off all the lights and all communication, internet, and everything's no longer working on the boat. And they usually do it like 2 or 3 days, because what they're trying to do is make the carrier stealth to where the carrier can't be picked up. So what ends up happening is we're in River City. We just think we're in River City because, we would go in and out of River City ever so often, usually when we were like transiting by Iran or something. So we didn't know why we were in River City, but we just had to deal with it. Like if you were married, you couldn't email your wife or call home or anything. We were in River City. And then one day, about 30 minutes before they arrived, they start moving everything around the deck, and we don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, here comes like 6 helicopters coming in, just straight like clear and present danger style. And the deck boss, the air boss, says attention on deck, and we're sitting there on attention on deck. 6 helicopters like fly around and they land. These are like everything from like Hueys to like Seahawks, all these different types of jets or helicopters. And we're all standing there and we see like Petraeus. We don't know it's Petraeus at the time because it's just some brass. We see a bunch of brass just getting off the helicopter. One of the helicopters had the, I think it was Pakistan or Afghanistan combat, or the general was on there. And he didn't have a briefcase when he came in, but when he left, he had a briefcase. So we don't know, you know. And then, you know, we were like, what was that all about? And they're like, yeah, General Petraeus. He was the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time. 7th Fleet Commander also was there. So that was like the one like, whoa, this is happening kind of moment. RCR says death is never something to brag about. Yeah, no, I mean, it's not. It's not. No, but you're talking about when he was talking about how many kills he had. Yeah, I always like, you don't talk about that kind of thing. It was like Chris Kyle, you know, American Sniper. He talked about that, and people were kind of like, why would you, you know, get into all that? It's kind of, it's something that haunts people to this day, knowing that they had to do something like that. But I never talk about it. But I know what you're talking about. The people who would brag about it, you're kind of like, that's not something you want to talk about. All right, Alfonso. Thanks, man. Merry Christmas. Doing corrections on my ship. What did you do? What did you do corrections for? Someone said battle stations. Yeah, I mean, you know, we had moments of battle stations like I don't know if you're on a carrier, what we had like alert 7s, alert 15s, and then alert 30s. And so an alert 7 basically meant that you had a jet that was on deck. It had 2 missile sidewinders on each wingtip, and then it had an AMRAAM, which is an advanced mid-air air-to-air missile on the corner fuselage, and it may or may not have bombs. I think some of the alerts would have bombs, but typically the alert needed to have air-to-air missiles, also a fully loaded gun, like 20 Mike. And so when it had the fully loaded gun and the missiles, it was an alert 7. But after the alert 7, there was an alert 15, and every squadron had to have one alert 7. And there was 4 squadrons, 4 fighter attack squadrons. So when we had to launch the alert 7 about probably 3 times the whole time I was in the Navy. But wherever you were, whenever they called alert 7, they'd say now on deck, launch the alert. And so when they would say launch the alert, if you were in the galley doing eating or whatever, you would have to basically just stop everything you're doing, run up to the flight deck, go grab your cranial and put it on your float coat, run up there and just basically get ready, because you don't know what's going on. And you don't know, like, they don't tell you like, hey, we have inbound like Chinese aggressors, or because that was typically what it was. It was happening in the South China Sea. So we would have like Russian. There was one time it was a Russian bear. A Russian bear is like a Russian like, I don't know if it's a bomber or if it's a surveillance aircraft, but I guess a Russian bear got too close, so we had to launch the alert. Then it happened one time when we were in Korea. We were off the coast of South Korea, well, actually North Korea, when Kim Jong-il was the leader before Kim Jong-un. We were doing a show of force over there, and he didn't like us there. It was snowing on the flight deck. It was not very good. And so we had to launch the alert 7 a couple times there. I want to say, I don't remember how many. I want to say it was like 3 times all total. It seemed like we launched the alert 7. Then a couple times alert 15 was called. Anyway. All right. Yeah. So we could talk about other things. I'm just answering questions as they're coming in, since we're an hour and 34 minutes into it. How well is Arizona handling the illegal immigration issue? Is it out of control in Arizona? I don't really think it's out of control here in Phoenix. I haven't seen anything that would indicate anything out of the ordinary. Um, uh, the the thing with the border, I mean, I haven't really seen anything out of the ordinary. I mean, people in the comments can message and say something, but I never saw anything out of the ordinary, really. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's holiday season. We should talk about the fun things, right? Like I got text messages, people saying, trying to plan our holiday get together. Um, what is with California and fruits and vegetables? I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of fruits and vegetables that are grown in the San Joaquin Valley, and that's like they consider that the breadbasket of America, which is Fresno, Visalia, Bakersfield, Delano, all the way up to Modesto and Madera, that whole area, which is where I used to live, and it's nearby Lemoore. And they grow a lot of vegetables over there, but they say the soil is like lacking in minerals and nutrition. And that whole San Joaquin Valley used to be a lake. It was called the Tulare Lake. So the Tula Lake, and the Tula Lake was actually the biggest lake west of the Mississippi, bigger than the Great Salt Lake. If you look back at the history of the Tula Lake of the San Fernando Valley. And so a lot of the water would come off the Sierra Nevadas. There's all those tributaries. There's the Kings River. There's like obviously all the rivers that come off Yosemite, Sequoia, Kings Canyon, all the way up the Sierra Nevadas. And all of those tributaries would just come into the San Fernando or San Joaquin Valley, and it created the lake. So because of all that sedimentation and that runoff for many, many years, the soil was considered a rich soil. And that's why it was one of the first places where they would grow a lot of fruits and vegetables in California right there. And it became the breadbasket of America. But what ended up ultimately happening was years and years of cultivating. They just basically sucked the soil dry of all sedimentation, all mineral nutrition, and all that. So now you have a lot of biochemicals and stuff that are in the soil that are fertilizers and pesticides that are sprayed quite often. And so they still produce like cherry tomatoes that are like super good and everything, but people say they're, GMO'd. Salinas Valley. Salinas Valley is over there by Monterey. But yeah, someone says, I have large saguaros in my backyard. That's good. Let's see here. Anyways, guys, someone says they check your vehicle at the border and if you have vegetables in your car as well as at Mexico border. Well, about NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, that I think plays a big factor in it because like basically the only people who are allowed to trade any sort of like produce or any sort of goods, you have to like be approved by NAFTA. So that's probably why they regulate the heck out of that. But like pork, for example, most of the pork you eat in Mexico, if you're eating carnitas or if you're eating a pork sandwich or pork tacos, that pork is actually grown here in the United States. And the reason I know about that is because there's a lot of Mexican farmers who were displaced because of NAFTA, because they used to grow their own pork. And then when NAFTA happened, the pork farmers lost all their jobs and they didn't know what to do. So they became displaced. And that's why a lot of them, some of them had to come to America where the pork farming was actually going on. So like that's fair. What do they call that? Fair trade agreement, where one country produces something better than the other, so they trade it. The problem is fruit flies. Yeah, I mean, insects, rodents, all that can all wreak havoc on local populations. Every island you go to is very strict about what you're bringing into the country, and whether it be meat or produce or any sort of organic foods, or foods that are can be broken down or that basically biological, right? And so the same thing applies to countries. So that's every border, land border, should be having some sort of restrictions about that because of pests. I mean, how does Florida have so many anacondas and pythons in the Everglades? anacondas and pythons are not natural to the Everglades. And it's not even the anacondas and the pythons that are the problem, it's the iguanas. So now you go down to the Everglades, you'll see a giant iguana, like, 3 or 4 feet long, like bigger than a monitor lizard, almost the size of a dang Komodo dragon. And the local biodiversity just gets wiped out because of it. And I guess the iguanas are they're taken off in Florida. So that exotic species or fruit flies, that's how viruses like dengue fever or all these different diseases spread. So yeah, I can understand why they're strict about it, but I don't know exactly why California vegetables are a problem going across the border into Mexico, but I would assume it's something along those lines. Insects and plant diseases, says 280 zone. Yeah, that's what it is. My friend bought a 1,000 square foot house in Havasu pre-COVID for 130K, fixed it up, and during COVID was assessed 590K. Current day assessment is 450K. I mean, he's probably like, man, I should have sold at the top of the market. He's probably like questioning why he didn't, right? He probably like, oh man, or maybe he just loves living there. But if I had that kind of gain, going from 130K to 450K, or 590K, what would I do? Right? I can sit here and say, oh, I would have sold that, but would I? I mean, would I have had the insight to do it? Maybe I would have thought it was going to $1 million. I would have held out for $1 million, but obviously we found out the peak of the market in that case was 590K. Current day assessment is 450K. Would I sell? Well, if he sells, he's going to have to jump back into the housing market. Although he's going to have $300,000, he might go in as a renter and wait for prices to go down, and he could roll the dice on it, or he could wait for things to stabilize a little bit more and then finally cash out. But I mean, in that situation, being up almost $300,000, wow, what would you do? I would probably sell and travel the world. I would live out of a suitcase for for $300,000, let's just say, to travel the world. If you wanted to do it in style, maybe 80,000 a year. But if you wanted to make it last, you could probably retire on that in some countries like Mexico or some Latin America country or Philippines or Thailand. Probably you could live off 300K for like 10 years. But the problem is, when it runs out, what are you going to do? So you'd have to make some investments, Someone says, I don't really have any aspirations to buy a home. Like I said earlier in the chat, I don't think now is a good time to buy. I don't. I mean, people can speculate and say things all day long if they think it's a good time to buy, but I don't really think it's a good time to buy. I don't. I wouldn't, like I said, the reasons were the HOA fees are high. The property tax is going to be a factor. Whenever you buy a house, you're going to have to do fixer-upper stuff. Even if you buy a new build, you're still going to be left with having to build the backyard out and do add-ons and stuff. So when the price is like that, I don't think it's good. And the interest rates are high. I mean, I don't really see the reason to buy right now. If the market stabilizes at this price for the next 1 to 2 years, sure. I would love the market to go up, because what I paid and what I owe and what it's worth, I bought in 2022, but I shouldn't have, to be honest with you. But I was upset and annoyed that I was having to pay $2,400 a month for rent, and I was like, adding it up, I was like, that's $30,000 a year. Looking back on it, I'm probably in a better situation than I was. So it was a lose-lose either way. And the reason I ended up in that situation was because I had a house in Santan Valley. For those of you who've been on this channel for a while, I bought the house in 2018 for like $260,000. The price went up to $380,000. I thought the market was in a bubble. I thought we were going to have a 2007 again. And so I was like, okay, I'll take my profits, go roll the dice in the rental market for a year, and then we'll see where we're at. But the market just kept going up from 2020 to 2021 to 2022. And I was like, dude, this is a strong market, So have you seen UFOs in Phoenix? Nope. Sorry. That's a conversation that always comes up. People always ask that. And no, I've never seen any UFOs in Phoenix. Has anyone in the chat ever seen UFOs? I've never seen Bigfoot. I've never seen ghosts. And I've never seen aliens. Really? RCR, you've seen UFOs where? Wait, people seen UFOs? Oh, the chupacabra? I have seen a chupacabra. I have seen a chupacabra. True. That I have seen. Like, yeah. And the other day when I was out hiking with my dad, I actually made a vlog. I don't know if I'm going to post it or not, but it was up in Cave Creek. If you guys want me to post that vlog, I can, where my dad and we hiked the Cave Creek. And when we were hiking out there, we saw javelinas, like 10 javelinas. Javelinas are like desert pigs. That has nothing to do with the chupacabra, of course, but we also saw an owl. And yeah, that was the only thing I saw out there. I have seen bobcats out there, wild cats, but not that time. But a chupacabra, where was I when I saw a chupacabra? Oh man, it was in a neighborhood. I saw a chupacabra. Burros and Oatman. That's like wild horses in the Salt River. Arizona is a great home base. I'm a freelance videographer and travels around for work. What do you do for work? Sunday, AM coffee on the balcony one day, blue shiny light streaming through the air. Okay, you're gonna have to give a little bit more information on that. Going from Lake Havasu to Bullhead City, you cross into Needles. My buddy said Needles is one of the California's biggest grow towns. Is that why it's so sketchy looking? Place reminds me of Flint. Needles, most California, like Barstow, like Bakersfield, even those are like some real tough places to be. Even if you go out towards Lancaster, where they have that Air Force base. What's it called? The big Air Force base in Lancaster, nearby China Lakes and stuff. But yeah, Needles, Barstow, those are all like not very good places to live. I mean, it could be because they call it roached out, right? Like nearby Joshua Tree, Death Valley, Mojave Desert. It's kind of like you have that same kind of thing going on in Kingman. It's just it's better on the Arizona side than it is on the California side, because California doesn't start to get beautiful until you get closer to the coast. Barstow's rough. Yeah, Edwards Air Force Base. But I mean, Lancaster is roached out. Bakersfield is probably one of the ugliest places in the country. I actually remember in 2010, I haven't been to Bakersfield in 10 years, and I have no desire to go back to Bakersfield. But I remember saying, this has got to be the armpit of America in Bakersfield, California. And they were still trying to sell houses back then for like crazy prices because it's California pricing. Bakersfield was probably the ugliest place. Even Barstow at least got a little bit of a free pass from me because it was still a small town, even though there was nothing really there. But when you go to a big city like Bakersfield and you're like, this place sucks. Sorry. Anyone out there who love Bakersfield? I mean, I used to say, like, is there anything here? The only thing is, like, I guess you could live there for cheap and drive into LA a little bit quicker than you could anywhere else if you were living in the San Joaquin Valley. But you got to go through the Grapevine, which is really a crazy road. 29 Palms, yeah. I saw it. Thought there'd be something on the news. Nothing. But yeah, there's nothing that flies that fast. Okay, so you saw an unidentified flying object flying at high speeds. Where? Where was this? Where? Oh, that's cool. Up Good Entertainment. Rap videos and real estate videos. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you can get a gig where you're going out to like Dominican or Cayman Islands or Belize and you're filming, like, hey, dude, do it. That's like the dream job where you're like, yeah, we gotta shoot in the Caribbean. We gotta get everyone down there to shoot this. I mean, that's the dream job, right? At least for me. Some people they don't love to travel, so they don't see the value in it. Nunya says, born in Bakersfield, now living in Santan Valley. Santan Valley. I used to live out there too. I don't know about Santan Valley. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. But I don't know how that's going to compare to Bakersfield. I mean, I almost want to say they're similar, really, to be honest with you. I want to say they're similar, although they're not. Where is Santan? So the reason it's called Santan is because there's a mountain range south of Gilbert called the Santan Mountains. So if you look in Gilbert and you look to the south, you'll see mountains. Those are the Santan Mountains. If you go to the east of the Santan Mountains, you have what is considered a valley. Because if you ever walked up to the top of the Superstitions or you walked up to the top of the Santan Valley, Santan Mountains, and you look down, you would see what appears to be a valley, even though it's really just the Valley of the Sun, just interconnected, right? Because that same flat land just extends from the White Tank Mountains through downtown Phoenix, through Mesa, all the way to Santan Valley, and just there's mountain ranges in between. Yeah, man, I hear you about Navy SEALs. What is a Santan? Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in Cave Creek. We'd come down to play football. There was a school out here in Queen Creek called Arizona Boys Ranch, and Arizona Boys Ranch was a 3A school. We were a 3A school also, because as you guys know, nowadays there's like 6A. But 5A back in the 90s was like the biggest high school categorization. You'd have like Mesa Mountain View. I don't even think Brophy is 5A. I don't know. I think Brophy's 4A. But in 3A, you'd go up against Arizona Boys Ranch. They were a 3A school, but they were some tough dudes. Essentially, it was Boys Ranch because they were juvenile delinquents. And so they were there because it was one of those schools, like if you're a troubled youth, you go to this school, you can't really leave. You have limitations on what you can do, but they were a 3A school because they were a small school. And we would come down to Queen Creek to play Arizona Boys Ranch. So when I lived down in Queen Creek, I was like, whatever happened to Arizona Boys Ranch? And I think they got rid of it. I don't know. It closed down or something, but that was all that used to be out in Queen Creek. I remember when we came out here in the 90s to Queen Creek, literally the only thing there was the school, was the Arizona Boys Ranch. You guys all know Brock Purdy, right? The quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He actually went to Basha, I think, which is in Gilbert. So he's a Arizona boy. He grew up out here in Gilbert. I say he's going to win the MVP, but Purdy, I think he's from Queen Creek. So his family was living in Queen Creek back when Queen Creek was nothing. So when he was born, Queen Creek, he would have had to have watched Queen Creek grow up. Oh, it's a co-ed school now. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I drove by there trying to remember exactly where it was. I want to say it's nearby the Queen Creek Marketplace, just to the west. By Santan, I mean the road. North of my nearest main street is Queen Creek, slightly better than the Santan proper. In my opinion, the best place to live in Santan, and I actually went searching for it, it's in the mountains because they don't have HOAs there. You can buy land. And so if you can get up into the foothills, they have some cool mountain ranges in there, but it's filling it. The plops of land are filling in quickly. Like you could get when I was living down there, you could get like an acre or two. They were still available, but a lot of them were filled up. And even then, I don't know if it would have been my preferred place to live in those foothills in the Santan mountain range, because if I'm going to live in foothills, I'd probably even pick Apache Junction or Gold Canyon, those foothills, over Santan Valley the Santan foothills. Or I would maybe even consider the foothills over by Estrella. Although I don't know. I would probably take Santan over Estrella. But then you have North Scottsdale or New River or Anthem, but I would say Santan foothills, that area, living in that property, probably middle of the row. Good question, Brandon. By the way, if you guys want me to keep going, smash the likes. We have 272 likes. I'll keep going if we can get up towards 300. So his question is this. Wait. Just curious, why did you choose to live in the East Valley over the West Valley? Well, for one, my brother's over here. That was a big thing. Also, my friend, when I moved back to Arizona in 2018, my friend was living in Santan Valley, and he was hyping it up to me. And I work with him actually, so I was working with him at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, it's nice out here. You can see the sunsets, you can see the mountains. It's not as crazy." And then when my brother was the one who sold me a house because he's a real estate agent, I was like, show me around. And I'm not the type to shop around too much. Like I actually picked my house the same day. We only did one day driving around, and I already picked the house and was in contract like the next day. But I had him pick out several areas: Gilbert, Chandler, and Santan Valley. Mostly because my brother was in the Southeast Valley. I grew up in the North Valley. I wanted to try the Southeast Valley. It was a little bit more affordable than Cave Creek or North Phoenix. So that was a factor, was affordability. At the time, it was like maybe $100,000 cheaper. I want to say like Cave Creek was around like, or North Phoenix was around like 340 to 360,000 for a new house. Whereas in Santan Valley at the time, it was like 260. And I wasn't able to find like a 3 or 4 bedroom house for that price anywhere else except for Southeast Phoenix. And I already knew that I was not going to do West Phoenix because growing up in Phoenix, I already knew that I didn't really want to be in West Phoenix. That includes like Deer Valley. Surprise, my dad lived in Sun City for a while, which is weird because I was like, why would you live in Sun City? But no, growing up, I always looked at Buckeye as like the armpit of Phoenix. I remember we used to always drive to Rocky Point, Puerto Penasco in Mexico. And when you drive down to Mexico, you'd have to go through Buckeye on I-8, and then you'd wrap down through Gila Bend. And we go through Buckeye, and I would just always just look at Buckeye. And even as a kid, not knowing a dang thing about anything, like just being a kid, just being like, who would live here? Who would live in Buckeye? Like, because when you go down to Mexico, it's usually in the summertime. It's not the wintertime. And I would just be like, Buckeye. And I thought the name Buckeye was just the ugliest name. So always just growing up, I always just looked at Buckeye as just like the armpit of Phoenix. And growing up in Phoenix at the time, Tempe was where you wanted to be. Tempe was like where the Arizona State University was. It was where the Cardinals played Sun Devil Stadium. Things have changed in the Valley. I mean, a lot of things have changed, but it seemed like Tempe was where it was at, probably growing up. Anyone who grew up in Phoenix, you can tell me where you would say it was at. But I felt like if you were a young person back then, Tempe was where it's at. I'm pretty sure nowadays it's still the same way. Like Tempe is probably still where you want to be if you're a young person. Hey, some people are into armpits. Yeah, some people are into armpits. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying that for me, I didn't see the value in it compared to other places. Everyone's going to see like another man's trash is another man's treasure, so to speak, right? I'm not saying that Buckeye's trash. Buckeye's come a long way. Like Verrado is a beautiful place. They even got a Four Seasons over there. But for me, that was just how I felt. That's how I felt as a kid. Like you're going to have places that you like, and then you're going to have, it had nothing to do with the people. It had nothing to do with the people. It was just the way it looked, Also, I think a big factor that could be playing into it is right next to the Palo Verde's nuclear power plant. The further away you are from a nuclear power plant, the better off you'll be. I think that also was in the back of my head. Like, I don't want to be close to a nuclear power plant, So, I mean, Buckeye's right there. It's the closest town to Palos Verdes nuclear power plant. And Palos Verdes, how many nuclear reactors are at Palos Verdes? Let me see that. How many nuclear? They're giving me Palos Verdes, California. No, I'm not trying to get that one. 3 pressurized water reactors. That's always been a big factor for me, I think, and why I don't want to be in Buckeye too. I would say that had to have been a factor. What's your opinion on property near Greer? Do it. Go get property in Greer if you can. People come from all over the country to go to Old Town Scottsdale. Yeah, they do. Old Town Scottsdale, and a lot of them go to the party over there by the W, by the Valley Ho. No, not the Valley Ho. You know, it's a funny name, Valley Ho. That's like, it's like you couldn't have thought of a funnier name for a hotel in Scottsdale. Could you? I mean, come on. Every time I always have a hard time telling people that's the name. I'm like, yeah, no, that's really the name. It's called the Valley Ho. It's a really popular hotel here. You know, if you look it up on Google, it's got 4.6 stars. It's right there off of Indian School Road and 68th Street. But you know, it is what it is. But the area in downtown Scottsdale is off of Camelback. It's off of it's where the W is. That's where a lot of young party people go, is the area around the W. I don't even know what it's called. It's not Old Town though. Old Town's off Scottsdale Road, so it's different. But the area where the W, I can't remember the name of it, but it's, people just say we're at the W. You know, like if you're like, who knows what it's called? Old Town has lost its vibe for sure. Like, it was better off staying like a country western with like a Mexican influenced town, or like a Native American Mexican kind of vibe. That's Old Town Scottsdale when it was in its prime. It was like a country western town with Mexican influence, and that's what made it so appealing to people. Nowadays, you go down there, and they're trying to like change all that. I mean, they still have like these boutiques and stuff where you can get like Indian jewelry and like Southwestern art, but that's the identity. They say it's the most Western town in America, or the most Western style town in America is Scottsdale. If you ask me, the most Western style town is going to be Santa Fe, New Mexico. Probably, even though it's changing a lot. Santa Fe is changing. Maybe it's Taos. But you could say, some people would say it could be Sedona. I'd say the most Western town in Arizona. I don't even think Scottsdale is the most Western town in Arizona. I would say a lot of the Western towns are down in the south part of Arizona, places like Tubac. I would say Tubac is a pretty Western town. I would say that Tombstone is a pretty Western town, although it's a bit commercialized and gimmicky, although it's still very Western, really. Those are two areas that are more Western than Scottsdale. Heck, I would even say that Sedona is more Western than Scottsdale. Tombstone or Oatman, yeah, I mean, getting to Oatman is tough. It's not easy. Lower Buckeye Road, lived off Broadway, a mill. Saw Hans Olsen many moons ago. Okay, Uncle Mike here. We're gonna translate this for you. Three Dog Night was rained out. ZZ Top was there. War was the last band to play before the rain hit. Oh man, Uncle Mike just dropped some poetry right there. I was trying to read that, and I felt like I had to translate. Tucson, you still need to watch out for dinosaurs. Really? What do you mean by that? Tucson. Globe AZ 1968. I don't know. Globe doesn't strike me as a old Western town, but I would have been curious to see what Globe was like. I bet Globe was in its heyday in 1968. The most recent video we made about Sedona, we're talking about Jerome. In 1928, Jerome was in its peak. I mean, there's 15,000 people living in Jerome, and it was the third largest city in the country, or in Arizona. Talk is like Arizona's a country. I mean, back then, each state was like its own little country, right? But they were called states. Have you checked out the Castle Hot Springs, #1 resort in Arizona? Yeah, my best friend from elementary school is the groundskeeper there. His name is George. So I got like background. I got the full tour. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Castle Hot Springs is the best way to get out there is by helicopter, but it's the best resort in Arizona. I think we made a video about the top 10 resorts in Phoenix, and Castle Hot Springs was our #1 also. Is, which resorts are the best ones in Phoenix? There's nothing even close to that one. I mean, you have Four Seasons up in Scottsdale, North Scottsdale, Troon. You have the JW Marriott in Desert Ridge, but those don't even come close to how cool Castle Hot Springs is. Tombstone, it's dirt and prehistoric. Tucson, you think Tucson's prehistoric? I mean, out in Vale, maybe nearby. You think it's prehistoric out there, huh? That's cool. I think it's quite built up. Tucson. I mean, it's 600,000 people, but I hear you. Do not buy real estate now. It's over. Big correction coming, folks. 42 years in the business. 42 years in the business, huh? Wow. Golf Digest named Tucson as one of the best winter golf cities. They showcase the course of Casino del Sol. Oh, wow. Really? Tucson makes the news for all the accolades in Arizona. Tucson was named like one of the gastronomical capitals of America. Like, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site for food, gastronomy, which kind of is interesting. And it's not because of Mexican food. I think it's because of the tortillas or something like that, like the Native American cuisine. It's not for Mexican food. It's for the Native American, like the Tohono O'odham, like fry bread or something like that. I don't know exactly, actually, but I think maybe it had something to do with like the Southwestern style. But to hear that Golf Digest again overlooked Phoenix, I think a lot of that is like propaganda to get people to like see Tucson also when they consider moving to Phoenix, being like, hey, look, Phoenix is overpopulated. Have you ever heard of Tucson? I think that's kind of what it is. The Ritz-Carlton in Marana is crazy. I've never been there. You're making me want to go check it out now. The Ritz-Carlton in Marana. I only stayed at the Westin. That's the only one I really stayed at. Yeah, food is awesome in Tucson, and it's mostly the Mexican restaurants that ever stood out to me. Like you have like obviously in Mexico you have different styles of Mexican food. You have like Oaxacan, you have like Jalisco, and then you have like Mexico City. So a lot of people just think, oh, it's Mexican food. No, then you have Baja. I mean, you have different. It's generally the same, but if you've ever tried Oaxacan style Mexican food, it's going to be different than tacos Jalisco or tacos Baja. You know, people don't know that until they actually start to really appreciate the food more in detail. But like when you go down to Mexico City, they serve cactus there. Like you eat Mexican food, you're eating like prickly pear cactus or like some sort of cactus. That's real Mexican food. You go to a Mexican restaurant out here in Phoenix, they won't even serve. You won't see cactus on the menu. Have you ever eaten cactus? For real? Someone says the chimichanga was invented at El Charro in Tucson. I mean, yeah, the chimichanga, anything fried would not have been around for too long because the fryer, right, like in oil, it's a new technology. It would have had to have been something that was new. Most of the foods, chorizo comes from like Portuguese and Spanish anyway, but chorizo is like a big thing. Does peyote count? Uncle Mike hitting the drums. There's another one, San Pedro. Someone said I literally gained 20 pounds my first months in Tucson. Dang, man. What were you eating? Beans and rice? Because what's going to put on 20 pounds like that? Mexican food will do it, actually. But you had to have been mixing in some Corona or something. Dos Equis. Snoring dog go to El Goro Canelo in Tucson. There you go, folks. Up Good Entertainment just dropped it for you. What are you going to get on your Sonoran dog? Some prickly pear salsa? Man, we're 2 hours and 9 minutes into this. I'm only going because you guys are all still hanging out. If I wasn't still getting so many comments, I would have already dropped off. But you guys are funny. It's kind of fun. Tucson is more based on Sonora, and someone said Whataburger across the street and working 12 hours a day. Oh man. Yeah, Whataburger with some Coca-Cola. That will put if you eat that for 3 months, Whataburger, French fries, and a big burger with a Coca-Cola, you will put on weight for sure. But you got to change from Coca-Cola to Coke Zero, and you'll be all right. Just saying. Upgood says, I'm half Mexican, half Italian. I was born to be overweight. Oh, man, that's hilarious. But you probably get a lot of girls, don't you? I was recently given some jalapeno jelly. I liked Whataburger. Jalapeno jelly. Yeah. Dude. It's a little bit sweet, but it's hotter than heck. I'd rather have jalapeno prickly pear jelly. That should be like marketed to the world. Really, it really should. Kyle says the highway infrastructure in Tucson sucks. They don't even have it. I mean, I-10 is it. That's it. That's all they got. But it's not a big sprawling city, so they don't need it. I mean, at some point in time, Tucson's going to have to build a highway system. I mean, what are they going to do? Like, they're getting so big, it's just a matter of time before like the population boom explodes, and that's going to totally ruin Tucson, by the way, because the only benefit I could see to Tucson right now is the fact that you can still have property and acreage in the Catalina foothills and Oro Valley, and it's not overcrowded. But once the population boom comes, I mean, hopefully they go down south into like Sahuarita and like Green Valley and then like build it out that way. Because if they go towards the Catalina foothills and Oro Valley and they just blow that place up like they did Scottsdale, it's going to ruin Tucson. It's going to ruin Tucson. Oh my gosh. Someone says they miss some Chino Bandito. What is that? That sounds like a good name though. Arizona has a lot of Midwest food chains like Freddy's. I eat Freddy's. I like their shoestring fries, and their burgers are delicious. Culver's and Portillo's. Never had Portillo's, but I have Culver's right down the house. It's good. It's okay. Freddy's is the best. Freddy's is the best. Man, I used to eat Freddy's all the time. The pickles and the mustard on that burger was just like, dang. Even if you went with the Oreo shake, Freddy's was it. Freddy's is legit. If you've never eaten Freddy's, you should. I noticed that a lot of houses in Tucson are Adobe style, but I don't see much of that in Phoenix or anywhere else in Arizona. And reason why? Okay, that's funny because my dad built an Adobe house for us to live in. I'm not a big fan of Adobe because when it rains over time, the Adobe because you can make the Adobe to where it's like a brick or it doesn't erode. Adobe is like a style. They more or less call it a Santa Fe style house. Really, when you see the Southwestern style house, and it's where they have the wood that pops out the sides, and that's typically a stucco exterior. But a full blown Adobe house, I'm not a big fan of it. Because when it rains over time, it erodes the Adobes. The mud and it's really hard to make mud to where it you have to put like this glue in there and this adhesive that really makes it weather resistant. It's hard to do. So after like 20 years, the little pebbles in the rocks that are in the Adobe start to show, and it really just looks like a mud house, which people like. My dad likes it. That's why he built the Adobe house. But I was like, I don't know if I'm a big fan of Adobe house. I mean, I would rather do a Southwestern style, Santa Fe style. That's again, this is preference. You know, I'm not knocking people who do it. Like I said, my dad's an Adobe guy. Like his buddy has an Adobe yard. He makes Adobes with the wood, and you mix the mud and you put it in there and you let it dry. It's sun baked. I don't think he even used anything to cook the Adobes other than sun. So I mean, he built a bunch of stuff in Cave Creek out of Adobe. Actually, it's the dude who is the groundskeeper of Castle Hot Springs. His dad's the Adobe guy. Who else loves the Superstition Mountains? Oh, the Superstitions. I mean, just the hike up to the table, the Mesa. What is it? The hike up to the. I'm skipping my mind right now, but Table Mountain or Iron. No. Oh man, what is it called? Iron Mesa. You know the hike up to the Superstitions. Flatiron, I think is what it's called. Flatiron. That hike is like one of the best hikes in America, man. For real. And if you look at the best hikes in Phoenix, you got Camelback Mountain. Camelback Mountain is the most popular because of its location. But the best hike in Phoenix Metro, I include Superstition in that because it's all part of the Phoenix Metro. But the Flatiron hike, it's crazy. You go up there like this time of year, you might even see waterfalls. I wouldn't say it's the best time of year. Typically, March is probably the best time to do that. Not too cold, not too hot. Yeah, Flatiron. She knows. And then there's also a cave out there. There's the cave hike, which is really cool. Can't remember the name of the cave. It's skipping my. I want to say it's called the Wave, maybe. But yeah, the cave hike is really a cool hike if you guys are looking for some hikes to do. No, that's what. Yeah, Brandon said it. The Wave Cave. Yeah, it's a rad hike. But then even beyond that, there's the Peralta Trail, and that is in a league of its own, all and of itself. And I would say that goes up into the Superstitions because it's the hike that goes out to Weaver's Needle. And every time I go out there, I see bighorn sheep. And the bighorn sheep, my friend, when I was out there with my friend, she was like, "Oh, we should go save the bighorn sheep because it's stuck." Because when you see a bighorn sheep, they just stand there and they stare. Like the Lion King, when they just like go up on the hill and they just look. But the equivalent of the lion in Arizona is the bighorn sheep. He or she, whatever it is, just goes up onto the perch and they stand there. They don't move. They don't flinch. Nothing for like an hour, and they just stare out over Peralta Trail. And my friend, she was like, "Do you think he's stuck? Do you think the goat is stuck?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Are you sure? He's not moving." I thought it was just the silliest thing that she was insinuating that, but obviously I could see why she would have thought that, but that's what bighorn sheep do. They just sit there and they stare. Deacon MMA, he says, "What's up, Jeff? Happy holidays, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas coming in 2 days. Happy winter solstice. It's the shortest day of the year." Oh, Uncle Mike's back at it again. What did he say? I've yet to have an In-N-Out any good. Next time I'm home, I'll try. In-N-Out for like $7, dude. You get a burger and fries with the 7-Up for like $8. As far as it being good, it works. If you do it, it's better than McDonald's. I'll give it that. How about that? I'll say that. We're 297 likes. Should I keep going? Get us to 300 and I'll keep going. Although I'm kind of getting a little bit tired. But the reason I'm able to do this is because of this Dutch Bros right here. I finished it. It's empty. Sugar-free with vanilla. Better than sugar. Don't get sugar. Sugar isn't the bee's knees. Get the fries well done. Something about the oil in there makes me a little bit get brain fog from it. So I don't really like. That's what I don't like about In-N-Out. I don't know if it's the 7-Up or if it's the fries, but one of them makes me all fuzzy headed after I eat it, and I'm kind of like, why is that? A fellow YouTuber was chased by a bighorn last week. Really? What's his channel? I saw a peregrine falcon dive bomb its prey at the Grand Canyon. They can fly horrifically fast. It sounded like a jet. So cool. Well, a peregrine falcon is the fastest animal in the world. It's faster than a cheetah. So yeah, that's cool. You know where you can see peregrine falcons over there by Salt River, out there by Saguaro Lake Dam. You'll see peregrine. Peregrine. I don't know, but they're super fast. Someone said it was in Utah and it's foresty forest. Oh, really? So what? So it's like a video on YouTube. I'm gonna have to look that up. I like to see that. Like in Utah, they also had an encounter with like a mountain lion last year. I remember that was like a viral video where the cat kept coming, and I was like, "Oh man, what would I do if I encountered a mountain lion like that, an aggressive one too?" Any of those wildlife encounters where like the cameraman's filming, I'm like always impressed if they're able to like walk away with like a quality video out of it. Cause I'm like, sometimes if those happen, I might actually shut off the phone and focus on what's going on and be like, okay, this mountain lion's obviously stalking me. I'm gonna have to focus on this. So I might not actually keep filming. So when someone is filming something like that, an encounter like that, that's quite crazy. There's that old video of the guy being followed by the cougar. Yeah. And that's not even the only one. There's like I've seen some crazy bear encounters recently. Like it seemed like the bears are the ones that like not grizzlies even. I mean, if you come face to face with a grizzly, you're toast. Like that's not going to end well. But this guy, he was hiking up a cliff, and one of these like I want to call it a black bear. The black bear was climbing up the cliff chasing him, and this guy was like kicking down on it, and the bear would like climb up and claw at him, and he would like kick the bear down, and the bear would like fall down the rocks, and he would come back up at him. I mean, and he was still filming it. Sorry, but you can see I was impressed. Mountain lions will still show up here in West Vegas. Oh yeah, man. Out in North Cave Creek, my friend said he was at Spur Cross and he was just kind of relaxing next to the spring, and he said he came face to face with the female mountain lion. So Ron says, "Thank you for serving our country." Yeah, it was a long time ago. I mean, it was 2012 I got it, but thank you. Would you consider doing a video on old Orobi, the oldest continuous civilization in America? Old, I've heard of Orobi. Okay, let me see here. Oh, dude, this takes me back to when I was a kid. That was the only time I've been up there. It's like a Native American site, yeah? I've been there. It's in Navajo County. Well, the thing with making videos in Navajo country on the res like that, the first thing that comes into my mind is what kind of permits or what kind of permissions do I need? The Navajos, they're friendly, but you know, it's one of those things, they don't demand respect, but they command it kind of thing. And that's generally been the consensus of number one, why we haven't gone up to that part of Arizona, northwestern Arizona, to make any videos like to places like Monument Valley or Canyon de Chelly, anywhere on the Hopi Reservation or the Navajo area, the Four Corners. And most of it is because of that. Like, how would we go about getting permission to do that? Someone says, "Did you hear about the ancient Egyptian relics found in the Grand Canyon?" Yeah, I've heard of stuff like that, but anytime you say that, that just makes me want to go down the YouTube wormhole for like 24 hours straight and just see what's up with that. Because that's what first comes into my mind is really, because now you've got my attention. I mean, I've heard everything from saying that it was an old quarry, like the Grand Canyon was an old quarry for the giants. A lot of stuff comes up when you're talking about this part of America, Southwest, even going down into Mexico. Like, to be honest with you, Mexico is probably the most interesting place on earth when it comes to studying archaeology. You have the Olmec, you have the Aztec, you have the Mayans, you have the Teotihuacanos, and tribes in between and around there. But in that area of the Yucatan into the interior of Mexico, if you ever read the journal entries by the Spanish, the conquistadors, the Spanish who were doing all of the exploration around the world, I mean, they went to Southeast Asia, Latin America, everywhere, right? Like Spaniards, colonies, they were in a lot of places. The Spanish saints who were on the expedition with Hernan Cortez, they said when they arrived in what was Mexico City called before it was Mexico City? I think it was called Tenochtitlan. The name of Mexico City is Tenochtitlan. And there was hey Jim, what's going on? There was a lake there. It was called Lake Tenochtitlan. And just outside the city is Teotihuacan. And they said it was the most beautiful place they had ever laid eyes upon. And they tried to draw pictures of Mexico City, well, Lake Tenochtitlan, when they arrived there in the 1500s. Because if you guys ever study the history of Mexico and the conquistadors, Hernan Cortez landed in Veracruz, right? And I think they say that he said to sink the ships because he didn't want any of his men to turn around. So basically, if you were on that expedition to go into the interior of Mexico from the Yucatan, from Veracruz, you were going to finish. And that was what the Spanish did. And when they arrived in Mexico City, that's what their documentation was. So when I heard that, I was like, that really piqued my interest. And then, when I went down to Teotihuacan, where the pyramids are, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, and I saw the pictures of what it looked like in 1920 before they actually excavated it, it looked like mountains. It was covered in dirt. And so when I saw the mountains around the area of Mexico City or around Teotihuacan, I'm like looking at that mountain. I'm like, how do we know that's not a pyramid? How do we know that's not an even bigger pyramid than the Pyramid of the Moon or the Pyramid of the Sun? So that got my attention. Then when I went further into the Yucatan, obviously you find out about the Olmec. Just look at the statues of the Olmec. And then you go down into the Tulum. You go to the Tulum archaeological site. You have Chichen Itza. And then if you go into Guatemala, you have Tikal. And then other Coba and all these other sites in between. And I was just like, dude, they had something big here. They had something big here. And so you're talking about Egyptians being in the Grand Canyon. I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what was going on out here, really? What's going on, Pro 4? Uncle Mike, I learned a trick to fishing a saguaro lake. Sat there for hours, threw the bait in to leave. The fish gobbled up real quick. Was living off McKellips and usury pass at the time. Could see Scarface. So what's your trick to fishing at Saguaro Lake? I mean, you're going to catch what? Sunfish or bass or catfish? I mean, I know that you could go into any of the lakes in Arizona with just bread on a hook and you'll catch something. Sunfish mostly. Vikings were in America well before Columbus, says RCR. I mean, yeah, that's another story all in of itself. And when I travel, I mean, I go into these areas where I find these very unique, like when I went in last 2022, I went to Iceland, right? And so before I was in Iceland, I was in Canada, and the furthest east I went into Canada was Quebec City. But I wanted to go into Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and all of New Brunswick and that whole area. But unfortunately, because of the time of year I was there, it was June. The flights were like $400 from Quebec City and the train was fully booked. So I was like, oh man, I wanted to keep exploring that region. So what I did was I booked a flight from Quebec City to Reykjavik, which is in Iceland. Because it started to pique my interest about what you're talking about with the Vikings being in Newfoundland, which was called Vinland. And so when I arrive in Iceland, they start talking about Leif Erikson, and they don't say Leif Erikson like that. They say Leifur Erikson. Like that's how they call him, Leifur. And I was like, oh, that's funny because I always called him just Leif. But you know how the Scandinavians are. They got like that very unique dialect, right? And so I'm over there and they're telling me about like their version of the story. Like I would get in a taxi and I would ask about Leifur, and then I would ask about like his father, I think Eric the Red. And I would I was like wanting to know more about the Icelandic people. And even Greenland like came up on the radar, and I'm like, dude, I need to get over there to Greenland and like explore. And they start telling me like, yeah, the Vikings were settling Iceland, they were settling Greenland, and I'm like looking on a map, and I'm like, Greenland. If they made it all the way to Greenland, then they had to have made it to North America. I'm like, dude, they didn't just go all the way from Norway and Denmark and Scandinavia to Greenland and just stop there, because they were setting up they were setting up cities and villages over there. So so that was what I was that's what I was really picking up on, was how interesting that history was. So naturally, after Iceland, I'm like, okay, I need to go to Scandinavia now. So I went to Scandinavia, and I went to that's you guys who follow Island Hopper TV, you already know about all the travels. I tell all these stories mostly over there. Reason I'm telling a story like a travel story like this on Arizona channel is because we're 2 hours and 30 minutes into it, and we're talking about all sorts of things. If you wanted to know like what the opinions of locals are, that was like the first 30 minutes of this video. But going back to this story, so I get to Denmark and Copenhagen, and I'm thinking like, well, I'm not going to stay in Copenhagen. And then I start doing history. It come to find out the Vikings were mostly located in that area of Denmark. But when most people think about Vikings, they think of Norway and they think of Sweden. I even thought Finland. But really the Vikings, that colony or that civilization, was mostly in Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, but in particular in Denmark. So I wanted to dive in more, but I would say the best Viking history museum that I came across was probably in Stockholm, but I think they have one in Oslo that's quite unique. But I didn't really come across much history over there like I did in Iceland. But it was something that I want to explore a bit more, was the Viking history. And probably the thing that caught my attention in the museum in Stockholm about the Vikings was their journey south. So there was a name for Istanbul. So the Vikings doing their navigation through around the world, like in the 10th century or something like that, they were going south, and they ended up in what was essentially like the Mecca of the world, which is Istanbul. And so at the time, I had never been to Istanbul. Later on, I would go on to Istanbul after that trip because of what I had realized about the Vikings in Stockholm, talking about how the Viking traders were going down to Istanbul, and the accounts or the history of what the Vikings were reporting back to the people that they were whatever funding the trip or whatever. And the Vikings were way behind the modern civilization, because at the time Istanbul was like the peak of human civilization. That was like the mecca of civilization at the time. Like modern society was happening in Istanbul, and they didn't call it Istanbul. They didn't even call it Constantinople. They had like a Norse name for it. And so when they got down to Istanbul, they said the trading that they did and the commerce that they did, they brought that back to Norway, what they saw down there, and they brought that back to Scandinavia. So that was like a very powerful moment for the Viking traders, was to actually see what was going on in Istanbul. And so about 3 months later, I end up in Istanbul. I always wanted to go to Istanbul, but when I got there, I wanted to see what made that place so special for history, because one of the first things they said was Napoleon Bonaparte, who was obviously a French general, who was a very successful general in like the 1900s or 1800s, something around there. He said that if the world was one and it had a capital, Istanbul would be the capital. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm excited. I'm in Istanbul. And the first thing I wanted to do when I got there was go down to the old town and go out on the Bosphorus, because the Bosphorus is what makes Istanbul so amazing. And it's a beautiful body of water. It basically connects the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. And if you guys look at what's going on in Ukraine, That whole war is being fought over the Black Sea. Russia wants access to the Black Sea, and the piece of land they're fighting over is Crimea. And Crimea is right there at the tip of the Black Sea. So that area of the world is super, 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 super important throughout history. And still to this day, wars are fought over that little piece of land. Right now, it's in currently the Ottoman Empire, the former Ottoman Empire Turks. The Ottoman Turks are the ones who occupy that land. But it's changed hands many times because when it was called Constantinople, you could call it Constantinople or Constantinople. I think some people call it Constantinople, named after the Emperor Constantine. That was actually the capital of Rome. It was not modern day Rome. The capital of Rome, the Roman Empire for a long time, which was considered the Byzantine Empire, which was a subcategory of Rome, because you had the primary Roman Empire in the West, and then you had the Eastern version of the Roman Empire, which was called the Byzantines. Those were the ones who called it Constantinople. And then obviously there was the whole story about how it fell to the Ottoman Turks was because one of the Ottoman Turk warriors had a dream, right? So it's a long history. Back to the left foot, never touching the ground, Arizona. Oh, Super Bowl. The Super Bowl in Arizona. History of Vikings 3-hour video, says Jane. Yeah, I mean, is that by the History Channel? Carnine says Reykjavik had a Viking tour and theater comedy act that was hysterical. The walking tour was very informational, and it was free. I loved Iceland. Here I am, a desert dweller for many years. If you get a chance to go to Iceland, everyone should try and do it. All I know is that if you go there in June, the airport is crazy, and it's not a very pleasurable experience because that's when everyone goes to Iceland. I would actually love to go to Iceland like this time of year and see the Northern Lights. But I mean, doing a tour around Iceland in this kind of weather would be just, hey, you're going to be a Viking at that point. Like if you obviously you'll survive it, but I mean, if you really wanted to do it Viking style, you don't go to Iceland in the summertime when all the tourists go. You go to Iceland when you got to dress warm, and and see the Northern Lights. That's Iceland 8 months out of the year. Plus, the benefit of going this time of year would be you don't have to deal with crowds, because the crowds in Iceland, that small little airport, which is a former U.S. Air Force base. Oh man, they need to expand that thing for summer travel. The Chronicle Medieval History documentary. Nice. I'll have to look it up. Emmanuel Dog, downtown Phoenix officially got rid of its homeless encampment. Did you see it on the news? Well, if I saw it on the news, that's good. But I'll have to go down there to downtown Phoenix and see if they actually got rid of it. You're talking about the one on Madison? Because they'll say something on the news, and then I'll go down and look in person. It's like talking about the unemployment rate. They say the unemployment rate in America is 3.4%. But I would say it's more realistically around like 20%. They just don't count the people who gave up searching for jobs. So, I mean, when the news says something, I'm usually like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. But that's good to know. That's what they're reporting. RCR says, you'll learn more right now than schools will ever teach nowadays. Yeah. Most of my history that I got from anything, I mean, in elementary school, they would teach us about certain things, and you'd hear words like the Greek Empire, the Minoans, like even in Greece, like I knew about the Minoans from elementary school, but I didn't know anything about the Minoans. So elementary school was good because I had heard these names like Constantinople, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Minoans, the Ottoman Turks. They would teach me that in elementary school. But the way I really learned about it was going to each place and then going to the museums. And then you start to realize what they tell you in the history books is a bit different than what you would learn when you actually get there. So you learn like a different history about the Vikings when you're in Iceland than you do even from the History Channel. So if you really wanted to learn about like the Olmec or the Teotihuacanos, or the Aztecs, or the Hopis, or the Navajos, or the Tohono O'odham, or the Sinagwan people. Because, you know, here in Arizona, you got the Navajo, you got the Hopi, you got the Apache, you got the Sinagwans, the Tohono O'odham. You got a lot of different tribes here, right? And that doesn't even include the Zuni. I mean, list goes on and on. You want to learn about that? You go to the reservation and you talk to the people there. You'll walk away saying, wow, I didn't even know that. That was interesting. That's how I get the information, is from like actually going to the place and learning from them and realizing that the stuff that mainstream news or history teaches is not always the whole story, the full story, or even the accurate story. And the reason I'm saying that is because the story that we hear about who found America, a lot of you just said it was the Vikings. But if you're in school, they don't teach you that. But when you go to Iceland and they tell you that they were settling villages in Iceland and Greenland, and then right next door to Greenland, I mean, look at a map. I wish I could do a screen share right now. If I just show you how close Greenland is to Nova Scotia on a map, you'd be like, oh, dude, they were definitely dropping down into Nova Scotia to get it where it was a little bit warmer, or Newfoundland, right? And then how did it get the name Newfoundland? So you're telling me they went to Greenland and then they didn't go to Newfoundland? Especially if they were living there. Of course they did. Of course they did. I mean, it's common sense. If they made it all the way from Norway to Greenland, all they have to do is go across the Labrador Sea and they're there. Dang. You know, but they didn't teach you that in school. It's good news that the encampment is gone. It was a very blight on our city. Every big city in America has one of those. And it's going to come back. Because until they solve the actual problem of, I mean, kudos to Phoenix. It could be possible that Phoenix is like the mayor of Phoenix, the city council of Phoenix is doing a better job than most places around the country. And that's totally possible. So if that's the case, kudos to the Phoenix City Council for doing a better job than everyone else. But the thing that concerns me is that encampment is going to come back, because that's what's always happened. They get rid of it and it comes back. It's like, look at what happened in San Francisco. Xi Jinping from China comes into town. They clean up the whole thing. And then, like, that's great. That's great. Why didn't you do it before? Okay, fine, whatever the excuse. But will they be able to maintain it? I don't know. That's not politics. That's just saying, like, hey, you've got this problem in society. Can you solve it? Greetings from the Philippines. What part are you? Where in the Philippines are you? And how did you find Arizona? Because that's good. I went to the Philippines. I was there for 40 days. I went to like 10 islands. I went to Siquijor, Cebu, Palawan, Luzon, Bohol, Panglao. So I know the Filipinos. I've actually been to the Philippines 3 times, but I love Philippines. I don't necessarily love being on a oiler ship going across island hopping in Philippines, though, because, oh man, it's hot, it's humid, no AC, and it's always late. But I love Philippines. I really do. So welcome, my Filipino friend. Are you Tagalog or Cebuena, or are you Visaya or Mindanao? It was kind of sad that the city of Phoenix was forced by a judge to clean out. Someone had to take action. I mean, you're saying it's sad that they didn't just do it on their own? Korean says, you're right. You have to get to the heart of the matter. Yeah, I mean, if you want to know straight, you have to go straight to the source, right? So whenever you get straight to the source, it's going to give you the information. RCR says, my buddy in San Diego sent pics of immigrants sent to all San Diego transit locations. I saw a video recently on X, which was formerly called Twitter, where some girl was at the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, and she was making a big huff about it. I don't know if I would have gone about it the same way she did, but she like filmed herself. She's like, you see all these people right here? They're all immigrants. She called them migrants. People were calling them invaders, but you know, she was being at least appropriate in that term. She was calling them migrants. These were not Mexicans. Okay. These are people from all different parts of the world who knows where they're from? I mean, you just know, like, yeah, that's not a Mexican, right? That's not a Latino. That's not someone from Central American either. Because they're from all over different parts. And she was saying that there were undocumented people who the federal government was paying to ship around the country. And she was making a big deal about it because she's like, my tax dollars are paying for their ticket and they're sitting in premium economy seats. And, my tax dollars are going to pay for this. Like I said, I mean, it's not the way I would do it. The only issue I have with a lot of it, because I'm pro immigration, obviously, as someone who traveled to 74 countries, and maybe even, who knows, will live in another country at some point in time. It would be dumb for me to not be open to that kind of thing. The thing that instantly comes into my mind is that every country I go into, I have to show proof of immigration documents. I can't go to Japan. I can't go to Singapore. I can't go to Nepal. I can't go to Dubai unless I process immigration the legal way. But here in the United States, we got a lot of people who are not processing the immigration the legal way. I mean, our friend from Philippines knows that if I go to Philippines, I got to process through Nino Aquino or NAIA, Nino Aquino. What is it? Ninoy Aquino International Airport, which is in Manila, and I got to go through immigration, and I got to have an immigration QR code. She knows because Filipinos know what it takes to get into the Philippines. And it's really difficult for Filipinos to travel, actually, because like my friends, I brought them from the Philippines to travel with me, and they have to go through a whole series of different things they have to do. They have to show like proof of bank account balance, and it's really kind of unfair what they have to go through to travel. Like I had to be a sponsor, but that's so they can do it the legal way. So when you see people who are not doing it the legal way, they're just going around they're illegally entering a country. As someone who does follow the laws of the land everywhere you're at, going through the legal process, that can be a bit frustrating. From Dumaguete, but I love Phoenix. Oh, you're from Dumaguete. That's the port that I left out of when I went to Siquijor. Because I was in Santander and Cebu, and I rode the ferry, which was an easy ferry to go from Santander to Dumaguete. But then when I went from Negros to Siquijor, I was on one of those big, the big boat at the port of. Corinne says, I'm pro-immigration. I am open to it. Most countries have a very stringent visa program. It's difficult for us. We have a huge border, and many people are attracted to the jobs and economy. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. And in the situation, for example, in Venezuela, I told you guys on the last video, watch the guy Bald and Bankrupt. He did a video where he crossed the Darien Strait in Panama in the migrant caravan that goes from Venezuela to the border. These people are suffering extreme. They're for them to go through that process of suffering to cross the Darien to basically walk all the way from Venezuela to the United States border. That's not easy. That is not easy. A lot of them die along the way. But the fact that they're so desperate that they're willing to pay a coyote $1,000 to smuggle them into the United States to seek a better life for them and their kids, and they're bringing kids with them, you have to feel sympathy for that situation. And the first thing that comes to mind is, why the heck doesn't Venezuela get it together so that their citizens don't have to go through such hardship? So you can't really blame the people who are left with no other situation left. It's a failure of government, really. At some point in time, you have to call it what it is. It's a failure of government. And so if one of those immigrants comes here, the only thing that I would ask them to do is to, well, if you're in that situation and you've crossed the border illegally because you had no other choice, it would just try to be a quality, do good work, be an upstanding person, and you should be okay, because I mean, what else can you really say to someone who you're like, oh, you crossed here illegally? All right, well, you're here. I mean, it's a tough situation. I've met some people who are undocumented. It's an awkward conversation because you don't want to like say like anything like, hey, you're undocumented. Like you meet someone who's undocumented, you know, you realize they're a nice person, they're good, they do a great job for you, whatever it is that you know they're doing. Like in this case, when I met an undocumented worker, they just so happened to be on the crew that was doing landscaping at my house. Also, I met undocumented workers at the car wash. I mean, if anything, I would say that the undocumented worker was better than the native worker, the person who was an American. I mean, the guy cleaned my car like spotless, but he was undocumented. So I mean, it's one of those things. Most of the time, when you meet them, they're actually pretty nice. That's the ones from Latin America. Now, when we're talking about ones from other places, that's where people are kind of like raising an eyebrow. They're like, "What's going on with that? What are those people up to?" And that's where you see those videos where they're like, "These are a bunch of men that you know are my age, 30 to 40, with no kids, no women, and they're just like coming into the country by the millions." And people are like, "What are they doing here? What are they up to?" So nowadays, people don't even have problems with the people coming from Venezuela or Mexico that are coming into the country. They're wanting to know where these people are coming from other places. At this point, the people from Venezuela and Mexico, they look like the good guys. Even if they're crossing illegally, people are still like, "Hey, you guys are good. Who are these other guys, though?" You know, I mean, that's kind of what's happening because they don't know what their intentions are. They don't know what the intentions are. It's not that that's the thing that I'm picking up on is what the concerns are by listening to the people who are highlighting some of the concerns. So it's tough. It's a tough situation to really understand, but I could understand why they would say there needs to be some attention paid to that. I don't want to get into too much more of that, but you guys asked that. That's probably like the most commonly asked question on this channel. And when I read comments from people from out of state in the comments, they're always like, "Hey, how is the situation along the border in Arizona?" And the reason is because like if you type in the Arizona border situation on YouTube, you'll see there's videos by guys like Peter Santillo or Santinello, I think is his name. You guys know Peter Santillo. But he's not the only one. I mean, like Elon Musk went down there. His videos got millions of views. So like people see that and then they come onto the Arizona channel and then they start asking like, what's going on down there in the border? Can you go down there and film it? And then I go down to Nogales and I'm filming it. And I'm like, I don't even know if I feel safe even around the border at Nogales. They just closed Lukeville. And the reason they closed Lukeville, which is the other side of Sonoita, which is the way down to Rocky Point, the only way to get down into Mexico right now is through Nogales. And if you've never crossed the border into Nogales, that is high security zone right there. The border wall is intimidating looking. The characters around there at the border on the US side and the Mexico side are a bit shady. I mean, you even talk to the people on the reservation at Tohono O'odham down south of Tucson about the things they've seen, cop shootouts with migrants, all these different things, like crazy, like high-speed chases. I mean, you just talk to the people down there in south of Tucson, they'll tell you the stories about what they've seen. So, I mean, it's almost like you go down there, you get too close, you might end up in the crossfires. And if you're camping down there, maybe not the best place to be camping. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about it. I mean, any immigration process needs to be documented and legal if you want to live in a perfect world. I mean, in a perfect situation, you know who's who, who's there, who's what. Angel says, I worked at the farmhouse at the mission. What mission? Did you see the report about AZ being #1 in road rage? No, I didn't. But it doesn't surprise me because the people that are driving side by side, they're all crazy. Anyways, guys, thanks to 327 people who crushed the likes. We've been doing this for 2 hours and 53 minutes, and now my eyes are starting to hurt from staring at the screen. But I've had fun talking with everyone, and hopefully you guys had a good time asking questions and participating in conversation with everybody, not just me, of course. I'm just the moderator of the whole discussion, but a lot of the chat is where most of our conversation comes from anyway. Oh, you were at San Javier. But yeah, thank you, RCR. Thank you, Jane. Merry Christmas. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks to all the new subscribers. I see we got a few new subscribers too. And thank you to our new channel members. I saw a few of you signed up as channel members. And see you guys on the next one. Thank you, Kareen. All right, Emmanuel. I see Deacon MMA. If I missed your comment, I apologize. There's a lot. And right now my eyes are strained and I need to put on these glasses. See you guys on the next one.